Warrior Lore. Chapter 295. It's not because of you. Chapter 295. It's not because of you. From inside the dragon skeleton, the Holy Spirit God screamed out, continuously releasing soul forces with the hopes of changing the situation. Suddenly, the icy crystal bone dragons, which had been tied up by Yan's sea of consciousness, violently wriggled while their soul forces were gradually increasing. However, they still underestimated Yan's soul competency. In the abandoned land, Yan had continuously studied different magical spiritual Upanishads of the demonic Sound Clan. Moreover, he had also taken Panja and the other warriors to be his experimental human test subjects. Although his understanding of the souls was still not as well as that of Tian and the other leaders of the demonic Sound Clan, his perception of the spiritual Upanishads had been much more profound if compared with ordinary people or even some normal pagans of the demonic Sound Clan. Anyway, not all of the demonic Sound Clan's pagans had a chance to study the most marvelous, miraculous secret scriptures of this clan. On the one hand, Yan had a thorough perception of the spiritual Upanishads, learned by heart all kinds of soul techniques of the demonic Sound Clan. On the other hand, his 5 devils in the Sea of Mind from the Blood Vein Ring were extremely mystical, possessed devilish powers that could even surprise and puzzle Etianimo, the demonic Sound Clan's leader, as well as the expertise in the spiritual Upanishads. With all of the above reasons, if the Holy Spirit God still considered Yan as an ordinary warrior, it would suffer a great loss. It's not because of you, Yan shouted coldly. His eyes shot out frigid rays like the freezing aura in an ice cellar. Thin milk-white frost massively spread out from the pores of his body. It was the icy cold power that the ice-cold flame poured into his body. Thin smoke hovered around covering him, created a natural icy shield which quietly protected him from the imminent attacks of the Holy Spirit God. At the same time, the 5 devils, who had just returned with cruel and fierce appearances, suddenly dashed towards those small icy crystal bone dragons which were being tied up. As the icy crystal bone dragons saw the 5 devils penetrating into the sea of consciousness, they started to struggle constantly, trying to escape from the shackles inside the sea of consciousness. However, Yan's host soul inside the sea of consciousness kept launching tenacious binding forces, filling the beams of lights which were fastening the icy crystal bone dragons. No matter how much those icy crystal bone dragons tried, they couldn't get out of this shackle. Don't! The Holy Spirit God ear-piercingly cried out. It wanted to fly out of the dragon crystal, but was entangled by the burning fires of the 10,000-year earth flame. More horrendous soul attacks were discharged from the dragon crystal. Those soul forces alternatively turned to the ethereal figures of mighty beasts which were roaring and growling. They stormed towards Yan's sea of consciousness one by one. Right at this moment, the soul auras of Etianimo, Yiming, and Kaba suddenly appeared inside the freezing dragon skeleton. When Yan's sea of consciousness opened up and the heaven eye brightened, he saw Etianimo, Yiming, and Kaba, who had used their soul state to appear here, immediately prevent the ethereal beasts that had been released by the Holy Spirit God. Taking this chance, the host soul inside his sea of consciousness then put forth all of its strength to bind dozens of those transparent icy crystal bone dragons. Yan understood that tens of these icy crystal bone dragons were the pure soul forces of the Holy Spirit God. These forces were tremendous enough to destroy his sea of consciousness completely. Moreover, these soul forces also contained some terrifying powers. Warrior Lord, the 5 devils would possibly swallow those mighty soul forces. When the 5 devils were showing their strong greed, Yan immediately knew that these icy crystal bone dragons were certainly the miracle medicines for the 5 devils to make the transformation breakthrough. Swallowing up these icy crystal bone dragons obviously allowed the 5 devils to get stronger and their soul forces to soar. That was such a chance that was hard to have in 1,000 years. The 5 devils growled and flew up catching their preys, rushing to tear down dozens of those icy crystal bone dragons. The 5 devils devoured them as if they were their real preys, joyfully enjoyed them so much that ice rubbles from those icy crystal bone dragons were showered about everywhere. Inside the sea of consciousness, While the 5 devils were devouring those icy crystal bone dragons, their bodies gradually transformed. The formerly ambiguous ethereal bodies of the 5 devils now became clearer. Even the strange devilish patterns on their bodies could now be seen little by little. There was also a faint black light moving inside their eerie bodies. Even their forms seemed to be a little bit mightier. The 5 devils' dozens had completely devoured dozens of the icy crystal bone dragons within 10 breaths. After having eaten all those icy crystal bone dragons, the 5 devils seemed not to be satisfied yet. They flew out of the sea of consciousness again, turned into furious 10-meter-tall devils, flying around the Holy Spirit God to find a chance to take actions. Closing his eyes and using the soul consciousness to sense everywhere, Yen saw the 3 people of Tian Mo's group uniting with each other to deal with the Holy Spirit God's soul attacks. Being the leaders of the demonic Sound Clan, their soul competencies were exceptional indeed. Even though the Holy Spirit God, who was called God, had to show its helplessness when facing their soul defense. The 10,000-year earth flame was still constantly burning the dragon crystal, making the Holy Spirit God unable to release all of its forces. Dozens of flows of pure soul forces that had turned to icy crystal bone dragons had been devoured and cleared out. The Holy Spirit God had lost a lot of its forces and was nearly unable to resist anymore. The Holy Spirit God was screeching noisily, using its forces to cope with the soul defense of Etianimo, Yiming, and Kaaba. At the same time, it also had to deal with the 10,000-year earth flame. The Holy Spirit God was powerful indeed. Regretfully, it was not a true God after all. Eventually, after constantly attacking it without receiving significant results, the 10,000-year earth flame condensed its forces again, using the forces of the sun-refined spirit inside the earth flame to increase the burning fires to one level higher. The earth flame which was wrapping the dragon crystal released the scorching heat like the heat of the sun at noon instantly. The fusion of this blazing heat with the burning forces of the earth flame tripled the earth flame's burning fires. Crack, crack, crack. The dragon crystal produced strange echoes all of a sudden. The peculiar liquid inside it moved slower. Bubbles boiled more and more. In fact, we can still negotiate more carefully. You will not want anything to happen to me. If I am not here, the sky and earth aura in this area will dissolve. I know the sky and earth aura is extremely crucial for your cultivations. Don't you want to see this island become a desert island? The Holy Spirit God moved inside the dragon crystal, transformed slowly, and gradually condensed into an ambiguous face. 5 devils retreat. Yen used his spirit to withdraw the 5 devils. The host's soul continually released soul fibers like soul tentacles to comfort the vibrations inside the sea of consciousness and calm the seething sea of consciousness. After the greedy 5 devils, which were flying around the dragon crystal, had received Yan's call, they reluctantly came back from the dragon crystal, turning into beams of black lights and vanishing on top of Yan's head. They then reappeared inside his sea of consciousness and gradually became restful again. Although the 5 devils had already returned, Yen was still very cautious. His eyes coldly looked at the ambiguous face that the Holy Spirit God had created inside the dragon crystal and coldly said, "Now what? Are you scared? Didn't you want to seize my body forcefully? Now I know that I can't be successful." The Holy Spirit God released a long sigh. The ambiguous face slightly shook as though it touched the pellucid walls of the dragon crystal. It hastily said, "Retrieve this damn heaven flame. Otherwise, if the dragon crystal's icy power is totally consumed, I will be openly exposed. I will be screwed by that time, and the thick sky and earth aura here will also disappear. You certainly don't want that." "No, I don't care." Yen shook his head and casually said, "At most, I will relocate to another island. There are many islands with dense sky and earth aura. I don't mind moving to another place, but I do care more about destroying you." The Holy Spirit God trembled while contemplated without saying anything. Recently, dozens of the icy crystal bone dragons condensed from your pure soul forces are indeed the miracle nutritious medicines for souls. I will burn your dragon crystal shell. Wait until your soul is completely exposed. Perhaps I can both use the heaven flame to refine and absorb your soul. I feel that this is even worth than having a cultivating place with full of sky and earth aura. Shi Yin laughed coldly. He didn't care about the Holy Spirit God's life and death except for his benefits. The Holy Spirit God trembled even more. Keep burning. Burn that dragon crystal into ashes. Shi Yan's face was cruel while ordering the 10,000-year earth flame that was currently wrapping that dragon crystal. Receiving Shi Yan's order, the earth flame put forth more efforts, pouring more burning flame like molten steel onto the dragon crystal, gradually dissolving the icy partition wall outside of the dragon crystal. If the situation continued like this, the dragon crystal would melt down shortly. The three people of Tian Mo's group also understood Shi Yan's intention. They coldly smiled while increasing their soul-protecting forces, establishing colorful layers after layers of protecting walls to prevent the Holy Spirit God from acting crazily and taking risks to release one strike that could break even jade or stones. Why are all of you pushing me? I only want to survive, become a living creature with blood and flesh, not some illusory god. I don't want to be taken advantage of, nor just being a supplementing medicine for the others to consume and gain the abilities to break through, and then ending up heartlessly being swallowed eventually. I only want to live. The Holy Spirit God screamed out like crazy. Flows of soul forces, which were as sharp as sabers, were shot out. He seemed to be uncontrollable soon. Shi Yan's face remained unchanged while he quietly released his soul consciousness to sense around, bringing his spirit close to the dragon crystal, quietly speculating the Holy Spirit God's actions from the dragon crystal's soul vibrations. Your soul wants to act recklessly. Shi Yin felt that his heart was freezing. He seemed to have figured out something, contemplated for a while before shouting, "All right, we can talk. Don't continue like I will live, and you must die." While talking, Shi Yin also released a beam of soul consciousness to send a message to Etianimo and the other two and gently instructed the earth flame at the same time. No need to increase the forces anymore. The extreme hot aura of the earth flame which had been covering the dragon crystal was instantly decreasing. The soul figures of Etianimo and the other two leaders also slowly moved backward behind Shi Yin. The soul-fastening power that had been approaching the dragon crystal was also weakened little by little and turned into the defending forces. The feeling of anxiety and insecurity of the Holy Spirit God gradually calmed down and returned to normal after Shi Yin had made some concessions. What do you want? Don't you want to kill me? The Holy Spirit God stayed inside the dragon crystal observing Shi Yin. Are you going to comfort my feelings and wait until I am neglectful? You will then take this chance to attack me stealthily and ultimately absorb my soul. Shi Yan's countenance didn't change, but he was astonished deep inside. The Holy Spirit God had accurately said what was in his mind. When the Holy Spirit God was not taking precautions, he would ask Etianimo and the earth flame to unite with each other to launch a full power strike, tightly binding the Holy Spirit God. Before its soul exploded, he would take everything of it, control its soul so that the five devils could gradually absorb it. The soul explosion was so extremely violent that it could kill anything. It could create a soul black hole, attracting all of the surrounding creatures' souls. When a soul exploded, its aura would vanish. Nothing of the soul forces would remain. No one could take any benefits from that exploded soul. Once the Holy Spirit God soul had exploded, Shi Yin wouldn't get any benefits. His soul could also be attracted by the soul black hole that the soul explosion had created, which possibly led to the unexpected fatal danger. That was not what he wanted. In fact, we can talk in peace. Your being alive is more useful for me. Shi Yin suddenly revealed a smile, pointed the blood vein ring towards the earth flame to call it back. The earth flame and he had a close spiritual interaction. Thus, it naturally understood his intention. Right after he had moved his hand, the earth flame immediately turned to a beam of flames getting back into the blood vein ring. As soon as the earth flame had disappeared, the uncomfortable heating temperature inside the dragon crystal had completely gone. The freezing aura like an ice cellar flooded the entire dragon skeleton once again. The dragon crystal, which wasn't entangled by the earth flame anymore, became splendidly translucent. The freezing aura inside the dragon skeleton turned into glittering ice like snowflakes, falling to the dragon crystal and being absorbed entirely by the dragon crystal, which made the dragon crystal more brightened, and the icy aura had become more tremendous. The Holy Spirit God didn't say anything more. It kept silent and observed every single move of Shi Yan's without daring to be neglectful. It seemed to have gone through many treacheries and experienced people's malicious hearts. Especially Shi Yan's cold-heartedness had left a deep impression on it. It didn't expect that a cruel person like Shi Yan could even have a conscience. It even assumed that Shi Yan would sneakily attack it, so it was waiting and defending with all of its powers. You guys go up first. Shi Yan contemplated for a while before turning towards the ethereal body souls of Tian, Kaba, and Yiming and ordering them with a faint smile. Master, Tian transmitted his soul consciousness, showing his disagreement. It's all right. Shi Yan's face was very calm. He waved his hand implicating that they should not be worried. I will be careful. There will be no problems. Leave us alone. The three people of Tian's group hesitated a little bit. As they saw that Shi Yan was very confident, they then slowly left. The three ethereal body souls faded out and finally turned into many light dots, disappearing without leaving a trace. On top of the snow dragon mountain, the bodies of Tian, Kaba, and Yiming shook violently. They opened their eyes simultaneously and took a deep breath. How was it? Yuro hastily asked. Dishan also knitted his eyebrows. Chao Jilan bit her lips, took one step closer to Tian's group with her beautiful, curious eyes. Her elegant ears swayed mischievously. She was obviously very interested in Tian's response. Tian knitted his eyebrows while glancing at Chao Jilan. Chao Jilan revealed a smile, took a few steps backward but didn't show any fear. Instead, she burst into laughter and said, I have figured out your relations earlier. I know, there is some covenant between you and him. Unless this covenant is abolished, you respect him very much, even follow his orders. Dishan suddenly squinted. A cold light from deep inside his pupils flared up and disappeared right away. Chao Jilan's beautiful face changed slightly. She felt freezing inside. Her charming body trembled. She hurriedly raised her hand and explained, I don't have any wicked intentions. I just want to be friendly with him. I am sure he knows about it. Chao Jilan pointed towards Tian. Tian couldn't forget her bold proposal for Shi Yan. Under the scrutinizing looks of Dishan and Yuro, he nodded with a strange face and said, This girl has proactively proposed to give herself in a marriage with Shi Yan. Her eyes are very sharp indeed, able to see his limitless potentials. Yuro's beautiful eyes suddenly lightened up. She started to evaluate Chao Jilan seriously for the first time. She looked at Chao Jilan and nodded at the same time, then revealed a meaningful smile. That little girl's appearance is not just ordinary. Looks like an interesting girl. Her daring is not small either. Not bad. But if you want him to be moved and agree, you should put more efforts. Please instruct me. Chao Jilan's face was serious with a sincere manner. Yuro shook her head and said with a faint smile, I have to see your performance later. Just tell us what has happened down there. When he comes up later, if he doesn't want this girl to know, you can always delete her memories. Dishan seemed to be impatient, coldly said, For you guys, it is easy to do. Tian nodded and said without holding anything back anymore, We united with each other and almost destroyed the Holy Spirit God. However, that fellow realized that the situation had gone bad and wanted to have its soul exploded to die together with us. At that time, Shi Yan immediately stopped putting pressure on it. He told us to come up here first and leave him alone to settle things down there. He alone can deal with that fellow? Yuro was astonished and a little worried. Tian shook his head and said, I don't know, but there are many strange things on his body. Maybe there will not be any big problems. Anyway, that Holy Spirit God had been beaten so much that he was scared out of its wits. After listening, Dishan and Yuro didn't say anything more, although they still felt a little worried. Boom, boom, boom. Not long after that, an earth-shaking explosive sound came up from underneath the snow dragon mountain once again. The place where Shi Yin had fallen cracked open one more time, exposing a new connecting path, from which the dense lava ice and the heavy sky and earth aura spread out. Dishan and the other people all had astonished faces. They attentively looked towards that connecting path which had just cracked open, watching the commotions deep down there while taking precautions in silence. A big figure slowly leaped up from deep down the connecting path as if it was pushed up by the lava ice under the feet, hence, didn't waste any of its strength to fly straight up. "He is out," Etianimo shouted slightly with his suspicious eyes. With the support of the lava ice, Shi Yin quickly got out of the icy crystal bone dragon without using any strength. A smile beamed out from the corner of his mouth. His mood seemed quite good. "How was it?" Kaba couldn't help but immediately move closer and ask after waiting for Shi Yin to have gotten out. "It's done. It has agreed to work for us, help us gather the sky and earth aura, rebuild the Snow Dragon Island to become an abundant supplying resource for us." How come it has become that obedient? I have promised to make a suitable body for it. That's it. Chapter 296, Captives. Chapter 296, Captives. The dense adhesive sky and earth aura like faint morning dew hazily covered the foot of the Snow Dragon Mountain. Streams of spiritual aura, which naked eyes could see, were still erupting from the crack on the Snow Dragon Mountain, hovering around, expanding gradually and overwhelming the 100-mile area surrounding the Snow Dragon Mountain. The misty spiritual aura resembled a jade-like white silk ribbon under the sun and radiated faint rays sometimes. Many of the Wings races and the demonic Sound Clan's pagans were astonished, looking around with joy, but they didn't understand why everything had become this miraculous and marvelous. The previous chill-to-the-bone icy aura had quietly disappeared. Although the Snow Dragon Mountain's peak and flank were still freezing like before, there was no longer icy aura flying out from the crack or spreading down to the foot of the mountain. Therefore, those pagans who had temporarily evacuated from the foot of the mountain due to the freezing ice aura were returning here from other areas on the Snow Dragon Island. As soon as they arrived, they immediately recognized that this area had gone through an earth-shaking transformation. Not only was the sky and earth aura denser, but the entire mountain chain also seemed to be full of vitality. Due to the tremendously dense aura, plants started to grow lushly and verdantly, among which there were even some precious herbal breads that even rare and unique to Chao Jilan. Dishan, Yuro, Etianimo and others hurriedly tried their best to create many kinds of special effect protective barriers and formation techniques. Many of the complicated barriers and formations required the sky and earth aura to be possibly created. With the help of the Holy Spirit God, this had become much easier. Not long after that, the entire Snow Dragon Mountain seemed to be entirely covered with varieties of defensive barriers and formations. Big and small formation techniques were as dense as stars in the sky. Shi Yin didn't know how their intimidation was, but he was already startled with the quantity of those formation techniques. The appointment in the headquarters of the Three Gods sect was coming closer. Today, Shi Yin went to find Etianimo to ask him to be his company, bringing him to the headquarters of the Three Gods sect. Among the leaders of the Wings race and the demonic Sound Clan, Etianimo had the fastest speed. The Snow Dragon Island was in the range of the Three Gods sect's powers, so it was not too far from the Three Gods sect. If Etianimo could bring him, he would then possibly arrive at the Three Gods sect ahead of the others. However, when Shi Yin was about to depart, the Snow Dragon Island welcomed a visitor. Sun Ming, the messenger of the Penglai Divine Land. He had heard from Gu Shao and Yuqin and known that Panja was being confined on the Snow Dragon Island. He came to the island with a good intention and wanted to exchange 10 islands in the Sky Sea for Panja's life. As soon as he had arrived at the Snow Dragon Island, he was then frightened by the dense sky and earth aura there. When he had gone to the foot of the Snow Dragon Mountain, looking at the heavy spiritual aura which was like slow gurgling water and the mist of aura that resembled a white ribbon hovering around, Sun Ming was indescribably terrified. Sun Ming had never been on the Snow Dragon Island before, but he had often been cultivating devotedly on the Penglai Island of the Penglai Divine Land. From what he saw, even the Penglai Island was not as suitable as this Snow Dragon Island for cultivation, since the aura on the Penglai Island was not as dense as the one here. This discovery brought Sun Ming a big surprise. He transmitted the information about the scene that he had witnessed and the aura that he had felt to the Penglai Island. The Penglai Island didn't believe him when they had first received the information. However, after Sun Ming had told in detail about the fact here, they became very frightened. Thus, the Penglai Island sent back the response instructing Sun Ming to have more respectful manners, absolutely not to irritate the headmaster of the Snow Dragon Island. Also, they told him to bring Panja back alive, not to create any conflicts with the headmaster of the Snow Dragon Island no matter what. Moreover, the 2 ordinary islands on the papers in Sun Ming's hands were also changed to be another 2 resourceful islands with plenty of special minerals. When Shi Yin met Sun Ming bowed his head, bent down very low as if he was Shi Yin's grandchild, greeted Shi Yin with a gesture which was so friendly that it could be called flattery. With a broad smile that remained on his face, Sun Ming respectfully offered the papers for handing over the islands firstly before proposing to take Panja away. Shi Yin was astonished, watching Sun Ming with the attentive look. After he had made sure that Sun Ming didn't have any other intentions, Shi Yin nodded and shouted to call for Panja, who was staying in the first story from afar. "Someone has come to bail you out?" Panja's face was dazed. The corner of his mouth slightly shivered for a while. He stood up submissively. "See you later if we have a chance." Chao Zilan dragged a half-smile out of the corner of her mouth. She was wearing a long snow-white velvet dress and a colorful plumy hat, leaning against the window and waving towards Panja. "Remember to ask that guy to remove the formation technique inside you. Otherwise, if your great master sees it, he will blame you for being incapable." Panja's face became toneless. He felt resentful and helpless. He looked at Shi Yin, who was standing motionlessly and heartlessly in the distance, but couldn't have any intentions of revenge. He knew that if he had any intentions of vengeance, Shi Yin would realize it right away. Perhaps he would even do something harmful that he had to suffer helplessly. Having been tortured in the abandoned land was a scar that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Being the future leader of the Penglai Divine Land, since having been confronting Shi Yin, he had always suffered the disadvantages, been always intimidated, and never able to raise his head up. The wound that Shi Yin caused had already been deeply engraved on his soul, which was not able to heal in a short time. Panja's face was depressed. He bowed his head dolefully with full of helplessness while slowly walking downstairs. Sigh. A good guy like that has been destroyed in Shi Yan's hands. Chao Zilan was pitiful for him, shook her head, released a sigh and said, "Shi Yin has knocked down the arrogance deep inside his spirit, leaving a scar in his sea of mind. Perhaps he would never be able to overcome this for the rest of his life. On the way of martial arts cultivation, the spirit which lacks confidence is the taboo. I am afraid that Panja is done." He Ching Man's face was in shock. Her eyes squinted, forming a moon shape. She was bewilderedly looking at Panja, leaving, then suddenly said, "How about Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing?" "Not the same." Chao Zilan smiled beautifully, exposing her white teeth with shiny red lips. She said, "That little rascal has despised those 2 girls. He has already touched all the places on their bodies which shouldn't have been violated. He has also messed with their minds and made them resent males for their entire lives. That bastard deserves thousands of slashes." He Ching Man was amazed, hesitated for a while before speaking with a strange face. "It seems that he has never disgraced you. I feel like you are jealous and discontented. Are you blaming him for not having done anything to you? How come I have that feeling?" Chao Zilan's cheeks reddened. Her beautiful eyes displayed embarrassment. She glanced at He Ching Man angrily and said, "I have heard that you and Xia Xinyan are good sisters. Have you ever thought that you 2 would scramble for a man? Would it be shameless for one time doing so? What do you think?" He Ching Man's charming body trembled slightly with her embarrassed eyes. As she realized that Chao Zilan's words were very sharp, she instantly shut up. "Are you letting me go that easily?" Downstairs, although Panja was full of hatred, he still pretended to be calm, looked at Shi Yin and coldly asked, Yin patted his forehead as if he just remembered something, then said, "I'm very sorry. I almost forgot." Burp. A small sound like a broken bubble suddenly came out from Panja's brain. Right after that, Panja immediately felt that his spirit was very comfortable, as if the strong bind that had tied up his host's soul had just been lifted. He felt refreshed, and his eyes also brightened up a little bit. "Your Penglai divine land indeed has good intentions." "That's good, very good." Yan's face was very joyful. He then contemplated for a while before asking Sun Ming, "How is the entrance which links to the chasm battlefield? You have sent people to enter the chasm battlefield. So how is the current situation there? Does the Sky Demon mountain range nearby have anything unusual? Have you ever met Yang Mu's fellows in your sea?" Sun Ming respectfully replied with a serious face, "The chasm battlefield is still the same. There haven't been any transformations, nor anyone coming out. We have never met the Yang family's members in the Sky Sea either. Many beasts have been troubling the Sky Demon mountain range nearby. There are also some mighty and dangerous beasts among them. That is the beast's territory, and we haven't dared to enter it, and thus we are not certain of the situation there." Yin knitted his eyebrows, then nodded after a long while, swung his hand and said, "You guys can go." Sun Ming looked at Panja. Panja took a deep breath, stared at Yin for a while before speaking, "See you later." After talking, Panja nodded with Sun Ming. The two of them went towards the harbor of the Snow Dragon Island together, and then disappeared shortly. "Hiqing Man, how about you? Will you stay here, or return to the evil wonderland?" Yin held his head looking towards the house not far away after being silent for a while. He raised his voice shouting. Hiqing Man's face was gloomy. Her charming face was full of bitterness. "The evil wonderland has become the demon dweller's territory. What is it good for if I come back there? I just don't know how the Fire Cloud Island is. Sigh. I hope that my relatives had escaped from the Kiara Sea." "Are you going to stay on the Snow Dragon Island temporarily?" Yin nodded, contemplated for a while, and then said, "All right. I have to go to the Three Gods sect. You can comfortably stay here." "Wait," Chao Zilan slightly shouted. Her appealing body, as slinky as a water snake by the window, suddenly leaped up and landed in front of Yin. She revealed a charming smile and said, "Bring me along with you?" "You?" Yin was astonished, then shook his head while speaking. "The Chao family hasn't offered a reasonable price. You cannot go. All forces that want to deal with me have to learn from the Penglai Divine Land if they want to ransom their people. I like the attitudes of the people from the Penglai Divine Land. Wait until the Chao family sends out their people here to offer the price that satisfies me. I will then consider to let you go or not." The reason that the Chao family's people haven't come here yet was that I have prevented them. Chao Zilan beamed out a smile. "I want to continue staying here to interact with you more, carefully discuss the ability to cooperate with you. That's why I have sent them a message saying that they don't need to worry for me. Besides, I am entitled to decide for myself. My family will not have any ideas about my decision. Therefore, it isn't necessary to send people here." Yin knitted his eyebrows. He knew that Chao Zilan had a special transmitting treasure. He didn't have any intentions of confining Chao Zilan. The fact that Chao Zilan had contacted the Chao family was not beyond his expectations. The only thing that was strange was the Chao family's attitude. The Chao family really believed her that much? "Are you authorized to represent the Chao family?" Yin thought for a while before speaking. Chao Zilan nodded to confirm. "Okay, that's good. You can go with me to the Three Gods sect's headquarters." Chapter 297, The Sun Island. Chapter 297, The Sun Island. The Three Gods sect was one of the most ancient sects in the Endless Sea. Over the years, the Three Gods sect had been divided into the three gods of the sun, the moon, and the star. They alternately possessed the sun martial spirits, the moon martial spirits, and the star martial spirits. These three kinds of martial spirits were all sacred-level martial spirits which had the miraculous abilities to absorb the power of the sun, the moon, and the star. However, thousands of years ago, when the three gods of the sun, the moon, and the star of the Three Gods sect fought with the Dark Dwellers in the sevenfold underworld, They had been beaten up by Avi Dark King and got seriously injured. Since then, the three gods of the sun, the moon, and the star had never met each other again. After that battle, the god of the moon and the god of the star had disappeared and had never shown up in the endless sea ever since. Only the god of the sun had returned to the three gods sect to rule over the three gods sect, but 300 years later, he had passed away quietly. After that, gradually, the ability of the three gods sect had declined from the position of the first or the second strongest forces in the endless sea. Nevertheless, the three gods sect in the Hengluo Sea had been still firmly intimidating the Dongfang family and the Gu family. Until now, under the governance of the sun god Tang Yuan Nan, the three gods sect's ability had started to recover, returning to the ranks of the most powerful forces in the endless sea again. They had become one of the strongest powers that others didn't dare to underrate. The headquarters of the three gods sect had been separated into 3 islands, including the Sun Island, the Moon Island, and the Star Island alternately. These 3 islands formed a triangle and were only dozens of miles away from each other. The Sun Island, the Moon Island, and the Star Island were the 3 cultivation places of the 3 gods of the sun, the moon, and the star. They had always been the divine land of the three gods sect. Only the core disciples of the sect were qualified enough to cultivate devotedly there. However, as the moon god and the star god hadn't ever appeared for so long, the position of the Moon Island and the Star Island had gradually been déclassed compared with the Sun Islands. Therefore, the heart of power recently located in the Sun Island. The Moon Island and the Star Island had become the restricted area, and unauthorized people were not allowed to enter. Until last year, the Moon Island became gradually vital again as the moonlight shone upon the entire island. A few of the followers of the three gods sect who possessed the moon martial spirits were then permitted to go to the Moon Island. It always had a rumor saying that the predecessor of the moon branch in the three gods sect had returned to the Moon Island. This predecessor could have wrestled away the glorious title of the moon god. Rumors were just rumors anyway. Even the followers of the three gods sect had never seen the return of that legendary predecessor. So, the people of the other forces had no other's chances of knowing about it. Presently, the flame unicorn with full of torrential flames arrived and landed on the Moon Island all of a sudden. The moon was faint, and the wind was strong tonight. Thus, the flames of the flame unicorn were prominently seen. A man in a glowing sun-patterned blue blouse was riding the unicorn with a deliberate manner. He, together with the unicorn, slowly landed. The bright moon lake on the Moon Island. The ivory water lake had a dense aura which was like immense mist hovering around. There was a small jade village hall floating in the middle of the lake. The flame unicorn descended. The man in the blue blouse bent down with a respectful face and slightly called out, "Moon Ancestor." The misty aura seemed to have its life gathering at the jade village hall. The mist was ambiguous, and the moonlight was shining splendidly, brightening the gloomy scene around, making this entire area seem to be immersed in the fresh moonlight. There appeared a beautiful, elegant, slender figure which was fully covered in the ambiguous moonlight, wearing a long white dress which was not made of silk nor brocade but similar to the white clouds in the sky. Obscure sack mists accentuated that vague figure, making her look like a peri or a goddess, which brought people a feeling of being amazed and standing in awe of the genuine beauty. The jade-like moonlight was radiating from her cloud-like dress, resembling small light dots and crystal raindrops falling on the village hall, creating clangorous sounds. "What do you come here for?" Her pleasant yet frigid voice slowly rose up. It seemed to be a little annoyed as well. "Didn't I tell you that if there is nothing special, don't come to see me?" "There is." The sun god Tang Yuan Nan of the three gods sect hesitated a little bit before saying, "Masters of different forces in the Endless Sea have been gathering on the Sun Island to discuss a big plan to deal with the demon dwellers. The leaders of some forces have also heard about the return of the Moon Ancestor. They would also like to meet you. What do you think about this?" "I won't meet them," that woman replied unfamiliarly. "I am at the critical point of the peak sky realm, only one step away from the spirit god realm. Before the demon dwellers invade, I need to make use of the time to break through this gap. I don't have time to waste with those people." "Moon Ancestor, when the flame unicorn has come back there, It said it had realized that the star martial spirit's aura is on a little rascal of the Yang family. That little rascal will arrive at the Sun Island soon. Do you want? Tang Yuannan hesitated for a while before continuing. The star martial spirits of Ouyangji. The woman showed a little surprise. Her face was bewildered for a while before slowly nodding. When he arrives, and if you recognize the star martial spirits of the three gods sect inside his body, you will bring him to the Moon Island to see me. Besides that, I don't want to see anyone else. Yes. Tang Yuannan nodded. He then consulted her about the essence of some ancient secret techniques of the three gods sect before leaving. Many swaying figures appeared on the Sun Island of the three gods sect. Different kinds of glorious sun patterns, which were made of stone, were engraved on the high dark red castles. Many warriors with different costumes could be seen there. They obviously came from different forces. The sunlight on the Sun Island was always scorching for unknown reasons. It seemed that this island was closest to the sun compared to the other islands in the Endless Sea. Hence, it was always oppressively hot on this island. This island was like a tropical forest. Varieties of verdant plants or trees were everywhere. Many warriors from different seas felt very uncomfortable when arriving here. Everyone took off their clothes, untied their belts, took off all of their thick clothes and hats to deal with the burning heat on the island. Many beautiful girls of the Yin-Yang Wonderland even wore thin silk or left their arms, waists, and legs bare, exposing charming curves. Most of these girls cultivated the yin-yang complementary technique. Their mesmerizing watery eyes were extremely appealing, making other male warriors on the island even hotter. Burning flames also inflamed inside them. Although it was blazingly hot on the island, there were still some people wearing thick costumes. Under the scorching sunlight, they remained their somber faces which could freeze other people's hearts. The disciples of the corpse's god sect were this kind of person. The disciples of the corpse's god sect who controlled the corpses temporarily resided in the south of the Sun Island, making that area gloomy. Not even coming close to this area yet, other warriors could already feel a flow of icy aura striking straight to their faces, and their bodies thus couldn't help but tremble. Inside a vivid red chamber, Yin Hai, the great elder of the corpse's god sect, with his deep blue eyes, was gently soothing the surface of a miasmatic cold wooden coffin with his skinny arm. His face was very attentive. Two similar wooden coffins were placed inside the chamber. These two wooden coffins were fully sealed, but still, the faint aura of the dead was flowing out from the insides. Yin Hai's skinny arms quickly attracted this dead aura into his sleeves without leaving out any of it. Shriek, shriek. Two separated sounds simultaneously came up from the two wooden coffins. Yin Hai suddenly shook while his face slightly changed. These two sky corpses belonged to him, which he had captured at the burial plot number 93. After having been worshipped and refined, these two sky corpses seemed to have no abnormalities nor emotions and already returned to normal corpses which were able to follow the orders of his corpse controlling technique. However, he would never forget the resistance of these two sky corpses against the capture, nor the difficulties that he had gone through after having attempted to arrest these two sky corpses 5 years earlier. 5 years ago, these two sky corpses of his strangely ran away from out of their burial site all of a sudden. They followed the others' orders to slaughter all the corpse god sect's disciples at the burial plot number 93. When he arrived that place, these two corpses didn't even excuse him, consistently struggled to escape from his control, releasing their soul powers to resist. If he hadn't had the anomalous secret technique of the corpse god sect, nor placed the special corpse controlling seal into these two sky corpses' bodies, he wouldn't have been able to control them. However, after having been controlled and refined, these two sky corpses returned to be normal without any abnormal emotions. 5 years ago, the incident happened to these two sky corpses was still a puzzle which hadn't been solved by anyone just yet. Only Yin Hai himself vaguely felt that perhaps under an unknown circumstance, these two sky corpses had quietly gained a little of intelligence and gradually evolved into king corpses. Regretfully, this evolution had suffered an early death as soon as it had just started. Everything happened 5 years ago. However, in the night before, after he had used the usual method to tamper these two sky corpses, he had sensed the vibrating feelings from them again. Until now, the vibrating feelings of these two sky corpses were clearer, and their resistant consciousness kept getting stronger and stronger. Shriek, shriek. Another two peculiar sounds came out from the wooden coffins once again. Inhai's face changed dramatically. He held his chest, taking a deep breath. He strongly constrained the sky corpse's resistance and gently mumbled with a somber face, "What is happening after all? It has been only 2,355 years, which were not even enough time to transform into the king corpse. Why is it like this? Great Elder." Right at this moment, a slight call came in from outside before a small, skinny young man shyly stepped in with his body bending low. Inhai knitted his eyebrows. His bony arms forcefully pounded the two wooden coffins. Hundreds of flows of dead aura flowing out from inside of the coffins were attracted into his sleeves and then instantly poured back into these two coffins. The two wooden coffins, which had resounded the shrieking sounds, now became quiet. "Did you figure it out?" Inhai retracted his arms and then silently looked at that young man with a dark face. The young man shook his head, displaying his fear, and then said, "My great master has gone to ask the two protectors Li Zhuang and Sui Yueru of the Yin-Yang Wonderland. They also said that they didn't know where the little rascal of the burial plot number 93 came from in that year. However, they said that the girl who was with him seems to be the daughter of the Xia family, whose name is Xiaosine." The Xia family. Inhai mumbled to himself. His face changed constantly. He then spoke up after a long while. "You can leave now. Don't tell anyone about this." "Yes, I understand." That young man moved backward in fear. Chapter 298. Great Sun Holy Light Tian Mu. Chapter 298. Great Sun Holy Light Tian Mu. Shi Yin was standing on an all-purple crystal rickshaw, clasping his hands behind his back. The three leaders Tianmo, Yiming, and Kaba of the demonic Sound Clan were sitting on the side, closing their eyes meditating. Chao Zhilan wore a purple silk dress with crystal adornments beaded at the corner of the dress. Her beautiful crystal-clear eyes, together with Shi Yan's, looked out afar. Her silk dress fluttered. The crystal adornments at the dress's flap collided with each other, creating ear-pleasant pure sounds. This transporting treasure was called the amethyst crystal flying carriage, which was like a large carriage without a roof. It radiated wonderfully splendid purple rays under the sun. The amethyst crystal flying carriage was made of 300 refined amethyst crystal blocks, which were full of rare auras and added 7 kinds of pure quartz by the Chao family. There were total 3 amethyst crystal flying carriages, which were all in the hands of the most influential persons of the Chao family. Chao Zhilan kept one of them. Before departing from the Snow Dragon Island, Shi Yin had wanted Tianmo to bring Chao Zhilan along. However, she had just beamed out a faint smile while her storage ring had unexpectedly flared up a purple light. She had then taken out the amethyst crystal flying carriage and gently sat on it. After having been started, the amethyst crystal flying carriage was flying with an incredible speed that had even gone beyond Shi Yan's imagination. Looking at the amethyst crystal flying carriage, even Tianmo had admitted that his speed was slower than that a little bit. Therefore, Shi Yin had immediately changed his plan. After having received Chao Zhilan's invitation, he had instantly gotten in the flying carriage. He had also brought Kaba and Yiming with him to the Sun Island of the Three Gods sect after having considered it for a while. Almost there, in the middle of the splendid purple rays radiating from Chao Zhilan's purple dress and the purple amethyst crystal flying carriage, she was like an illusory peri that brought out the glorious yet unreal beauty. Shi Yin quietly complimented her while glancing at her. He had to admit that this girl was the most outstanding beauty indeed. Her manners and appearance were of the first rank and weren't inferior to Xia Xinyan's. "Am I pretty?" Chao Zhilan revealed a big smile. Her beautiful deep eyes seemed to expose the most beautiful scene of the endless sea, which made others want to be immersed in the sea and never wake up. "Beautiful." Shi Yin curled up his lips, exposing a broad smile, and said, "Among all of those beautiful girls that I have known, Your appearance should be the best or the second. It leaves a deep impression just after a quick look, hardly ever able to be forgotten. So, marry me. Her bright eyes formed a moon shape. Her smiling face easily mesmerized the other people. If you marry me, you will have not only a strong ally, which is the Chow family, but also a beautiful wife that everyone ever desires. You won't suffer any losses no matter what. Marriage and children are a big responsibility. Shi Yan's face looked like he severely hated this topic. He shook his head, then suddenly smiled. But I don't mind if you want to play around with me. On the contrary, I genuinely welcome it. You know that I like to be embraced and missed by beautiful women. If you want, in terms of some aspects, I will satisfy you. Shi Yan's burning and lustful eyes scanned all over her body. Every woman certainly understood the meaning in his eyes. Chao Zilan was discouraged, stared at Shi Yan embarrassedly, and then said with resentment, "If you want to have my body, you have to marry me officially. Otherwise, don't think about it." Shi Yan just smiled and shook his head without saying anything further. He put all of his concentration on the 3 islands which just appeared in his sight. In the middle of the immense ocean, the 3 islands were round shape, moon shape, and rhombus shape alternately, all of which formed a triangle. From above, the 3 islands were like emerald gemstones being engraved on the sea surface. It was so beautiful that it caught all of the people's eyes. The round-shaped one is the Sun Island, the moon-shaped one is the Moon Island, and the rhombus-shaped one is the Star Island. Chao Zilan introduced those 3 islands to Shi Yan as she saw him looking ahead attentively. The Moon Island and the Star Island are in the restricted state. Even the disciples of the 3 gods sect cannot freely enter them, not to mention the outsiders. The Moon God and the Star God haven't appeared for many of the 3 gods sect's generations. Therefore, there has been no one ruling the Moon Island and the Star Island. However, it has been said that 5 years ago, the moonlight changed on the Moon Island. Someone seemed to appear there with the moon martial spirits. Rumor is just a rumor. As the 3 gods sect hides this information very well, nobody knew if that information was true or not until now. That is true. Shi Yan knitted his eyebrows and said, "That person I have met?" Chao Zilan's beautiful eyes suddenly brightened with astonishment. "How could you have met that person?" Shi Yan just smiled but didn't explain. "It's not fair." Chao Zilan glanced at him angrily and said grudgingly, "I have always answered your questions, but whatever I have asked you, you always hid them from me. What is this about? Don't forget, you are still my slave until now. I have used the demon's crystal pearls to exchange for you. I have sometimes answered you, which is already very good. What else is it that you want?" Shi Yan said with an invisible smile. "Bastard." Chao Zilan clenched her teeth quietly. She was so angry that she wanted to vomit a mouthful blood. Many figures were moving on the Sun Island. Dark red clouds floated in the sky above the island. The sun power inside those clouds was extremely violent, consistently releasing the scorching auras. Sunlight was piercing down from the ether. Countless beams of light were like water pouring into the clouds. They seemed to be absorbed and transformed into strange energies inside those dark red clouds. Those scattering clouds formed into a miraculous formation which was hardly able to be discovered. Before the amethyst crystal flying carriage came close to that area yet, 3,000 flows of burning sun power were emitted and then transformed into a sunlight net which slowly appeared inside a group of the cloud. Chao Zilan's face remained unchanged. As soon as her long, skinny, jade-like fingers gently patted the flying carriage's handle, the amethyst crystal flying carriage slowly descended on the Sun Island, which now appeared clearer and clearer. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 100,000s of the sunlight inside the cloud flashed on and off, weaving into a compact light net which covered the entire Sun Island. That sunlight net had just flared up and vanished before retracting inside the cloud. However, the tremendous vibrating power from that group of cloud had shortly agitated the 3 people of Tian, Kaba, and Yiming. They now just recovered from the meditating state with astonished faces. Such a violent power. Tian Mo's face slightly changed. He said seriously, The vibrating power covering this island is even 10 times stronger than that of the current sky and earth aura on the Snow Dragon Mountain. With this powerful defensive force, I am afraid that even the God Realm Masters can hardly break it. 500 years ago, 3/3 sky of the Spirit Realm Warriors put forth all of their powers to strike this great sun Holy Light Tianmu for the whole 7 consecutive days and nights, but still couldn't break it. During thousands of years, the great sun Holy Light Tianmu above the Sun Island has been broken only 3 times. Chao Jilan said seriously. Has been broken 3 times even it is that strong? What kind of forces that could be powerful like that? Kaba asked with surprise. To be exact, it has been broken by 3 people. Chao Jilan's eyebrows slammed slightly, and she suddenly beamed out a smile. She then shut up without disclosing anything further while her beautiful eyes glanced at Shi Yin. Shi Yin, who was listening attentively, frowned slightly as she suddenly mused. He then burst into laughter, shaking his head and didn't ask for more. Kaba harumphed coldly. His eyes sparked a fierce light. He glanced at her resentfully and kept silent as well. The amethyst crystal flying carriage descended slowly, coming closer to the Sun Island while avoiding the red cloud that was floating around in the sky as if it knew the defensive range of that cloud. A big figure flew over from the Sun Island below, then shortly appeared 10 meters away in front of the flying carriage. It was a middle-aged warrior with the Sky Realm cultivation base, who was wearing the 3 God sect's tunic. This man was big and rough with a warm smile on his face. Splendid flames were hovering chaotically on his hands, opening an invisible defensive formation in front of him. From a distance, he pointed to Chao Jilan, laughing out loud. "Is it Miss Chao?" Chao Jilan nodded with a smile from a distance. "Come in, please." This warrior slightly bent down, conducting an inviting gesture with a serious face. Chao Jilan revealed a smile but said nothing. Following that Sky Realm warrior's instruction, she quietly urged the amethyst crystal flying carriage to fly towards the Sun Island's airspace to the dark red castles in the southwest of the island. In the morning of the day after tomorrow, the meeting will officially start in the Great Sun Holy Light Hall. You are the first one of the Chao family to come. Does the Chao family send out someone else to come as well? This warrior guided Chao Jilan to an elegant and quiet manner and decently pried. I haven't told my family that I would come here. Perhaps the Chao family will have someone else represent them. Chao Jilan beamed out a faint smile while following that warrior to go straight to that quiet manner. Shi Yin nodded with Etian Imo, Yiming, and Kaba, then casually entered the manor. This Sky Realm warrior of the 3 Gods sect hadn't noticed Shi Yin until Shi Yin turned around and entered the manor. His eyes suddenly brightened. His face instantly showed some signs of strange. Waiting until Shi Yin and Chao Jilan had entered the manor, this person held his chest, couldn't help but become extremely excited with a red face as if his heart was about to jump out. Impossible, how can this? After a very long while, he could stabilize his surging emotions, yet he still showed an unbelievable look. How can his body have the same martial spirits with mine, but at a higher level? His martial spirits has led to my body's resonance, which prevented me from being able to have any resistant intentions. He stood there while his face kept changing constantly. He finally left after a while. Half an hour later, he was allowed to enter a chamber which was guarded by the flame unicorn. After conducting the ceremony, he said respectfully, "Hierarch, the person that you have told us to notice and receive has just arrived at the Sun Island." The spinning sunlight was swirling around Tang Yuannan's body. The sunlight circles consistently spread out behind his head, radiating 10,000 zhang halos, which made him look like a sun god indeed. When being reported, Tang Yuannan's face didn't change except for the brightness on his face that was slowly fading. "What did you feel?" "When facing him, my martial spirits has produced the resonance and also brought a strange and uncontrollable feeling of kneeling down and conducting the ceremony, which only appears when facing you. But I am certain that I did have that feeling." Tang Yuannan suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils resembled the 2 suns with dazzling light, which were like needles piercing into the other's eyes. Chapter 299. Long time no see. Chapter 299, Long Time No See. In the southwest corner of the Sun Island, there was a quiet manor which was specially made of pink bricks. This manor originally belonged to a great elder who had encountered the cultivation insanity and carelessly let his soul and spirit perish. Therefore, this place had become ownerless. The manor was 30 mu. There was a small lake with a bonsai in the yard, as well as 10 different kinds of storied houses. The maid who was living there year-round had been cleaning it up so carefully that this place was immune from dust. In the Three Gods sect, places that were used to host visitors would be arranged in accordance with their status and classified into different levels. This manor was one of the Three Gods sect's best accommodations for their guests. Only the leaders of powerful forces were welcomed and stayed here. Ordinary elderly protectors weren't qualified enough to be able to stay here. As Shi Yin and the other 3 leaders of Tian, Kaba, and Yiming arrived at this place, they were engrossed in looking at the wooden pillars with full of decorative carvings on the side, the delicate furnishings and implements, as well as the abundant and diversified setup. They kept quietly giving compliments and were astonished by the luxuriousness of the Three Gods sect. The servants were all good-looking. The beautiful maids here were around 14 or 15 years old, wearing light clothes exposing their arms and bellies with healthily tanned skins. They were approaching Shi Yin and his fellows, holding the silver plates loaded with shining fresh fruits, and then respectfully lifted up and offered to them. As soon as Shi Yin sat down in a spacious living room, 7 girls, who were still very young in age and very pretty, were all busy running back and forth, bringing them refreshments. This place is one of the noblest places to host guests of the Three Gods sect. Last time, when my uncle and I came to this island, we weren't qualified enough to stay here. That is the time when the Three Gods sect is receiving many distinguished guests, so I have thought that the treat this time would even have been worse than last time. Unexpectedly, that guy Li Fu has brought us straight to this place. It is unbelievable indeed. Chao Zilan was sitting opposite of Shi Yin. Her jade-like hand picked up a succulent grape, cocked her head, peeling the fruit. She didn't look at him but mumbled with a low voice. Li Fu should definitely have regards for your Chao family. Shi Yin neglectfully bit a sparkling grape in his hand and said, "Haven't you said that the Chao family's power is ranked in the top 3 of the Endless Sea?" "I haven't just been self-conceited." Chao Zilan nodded. Her full red lips chewed the grape and swallowed it. She then smiled and raised her head up. Her beautiful eyes contained some meaningful implications. The headmaster of the Chao family comes. It is obvious that he should be received here. However, your status and my status are deficient, so it is impossible to be qualified enough to stay here. Li Fu has seemed to pay attention to me on the way here, but he has fixed his eyes on someone else. The bright and clear eyes of the beautiful woman looked at Shi Yin attentively while revealing a big, charming smile. "I am just curious. He has never asked your identity but has treated you even more carefully and attentively than when treating a Sky Realm master. He hasn't even dared to look straight into your eyes. Instead, he has just stayed behind and sneakily looked at you. Why does he have to be so respectful?" Shi Yin shrugged, pointed toward Etianimo, Yiming, Kaba and said, "Perhaps he has recognized their real realm levels." The beautiful woman smiled and shook her head. When the God Realm warriors intentionally want to hide their auras, as long as they don't use their God Realm power, no one can realize it, including the warriors at the same realm. So, how could he have recognized it? Especially, our 3 men have profound understandings of the spiritual Upanishads. When they hide their identities on purpose, even the warriors at the higher levels couldn't realize their real cultivation base. Shi Yin was surprised, shook his head with a forced smile but didn't explain more. Chao Zilan angrily glared at him as he didn't answer her. She suddenly stood up and said, "I am going to the Sacred Light Mountain. Do you want to go with me?" Shi Yin shook his head. The Sun Island is round. Hence, the guest houses are all on the edge of the island. However, the foot of the Sacred Light Mountain is the most interesting place of the island. There are the most famous Sacred Light hot spring and storied houses for exchanging cultivating materials, secret treasures, as well as the adjacent area's specialties. As Shi Yin didn't seem to be stirred up, Chao Zilan felt discouraged and then told him in detail some interesting things of that place. Shi Yin still shook his head with a faint smile, swung his arm and urged, "You go first. I might feel interested later, and will find you there. You should remember that we have placed the formation technique inside your body. Before the Chow family pays us the ransom, you shouldn't do anything stupid. Don't have to warn me always." "Okay." Chow Zhilan was resentful. "I am afraid that when you are accustomed to the familiar environment there, you will forget that binding. Ha ha ha. I don't have any other intentions. You can go now." Chow Zhilan glanced at him. Her prominent body, like a beautiful purple-blossomed flower, deliberately glided away, dragging the colliding sounds of the crystal adornments on the flap of her dress. As soon as Chow Zhilan had left, Shi Yan's face became somber. He suddenly stood up from the chair. Without caring about the surprise of the other 3 people of Tian Mo's group, he sat down straight on the floor, instantly released his soul consciousness to observe something in silence. The other 3 people were bewildered a little bit before condensing a proper defensive formation in the room to prevent strangers from penetrating. Many flows of miraculous soul vibrations spread out from Shi Yan's body. These flows were very peculiar, bringing different kinds of feelings which contained tiny consciousnesses. The 3 people of Tian Mo's group were all great masters of souls. After having observed for a while, they realized that Shi Yan's flows of soul consciousness seemed to be receiving and also responding to some information. It was peculiar. 5 minutes later, Shi Yan slowly opened his eyes. He quietly stood up with a confused face. He contemplated for a while before speaking. "Follow me to a place."
Yes.
The 3 people of Tian Mo's group nodded simultaneously without saying anything further. "I don't know why it is that when I came here, I have sensed that there are 2 fellows who kept calling me." Shi Yan knitted his eyebrows tightly and thought very carefully before saying, "Those 2 fellows seem just to gain the spirit intelligence recently. Their spirits are still very innocent. Their souls seem to lack different kinds of feelings of the high-class lives. Although they are simple lives, they keep producing close affections with me. It is hard to understand." The 3 people of Tian Mo's group glanced at him with a dazed look and seemed not to understand his feelings either. "It seems that I have known them and met them from somewhere, but I can't remember even though I have tried to think a lot." Shi Yan shook his head with knitted eyebrows and a doleful face. "The feeling is peculiar and abnormal. Maybe we should go there to see. Otherwise, we wouldn't get anything if we just relied on our senses." The 3 people of Tian Mo's group nodded again. Following Shi Yan's orders, the 3 of them retrieved their defensive formation, instructed the butler to look after the manor. Then, the 4 of them left the manor, going towards the west of the island. Shriek, 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 shriek. The Yin aura was very dense inside the stone chamber. The 2 wooden coffins were making creepy sounds. The sky corpses seemed to use their long, sharp nails to scratch on the coffin lids, as if they wanted to lift up the lids and get out of the coffins. Yin Hai was presently not here. He had been summoned by the hierarch of the corpse's god sect together with other great elders to receive the hierarch's assignments. The Yin aura and dead aura were hovering around inside the chamber. It was the dark, cold cellar, which was 10 meters underneath the ground. The light was dim and gloomy. Currently, there was only one disciple of Yin Hai in this place, who was dozing, leaning against the wooden bed in the distance, and was dreamingly wandering in the cloudy sky. The echoes from the coffins were getting louder and louder. The sounds then got too loud that he was unable to sleep deeply. He finally woke up. This young man's face changed in fear. He stared at the 2 coffins for 5 seconds before his face turned pale and hurriedly ran away to find Yin Hai supposedly. Crack, crack. A long, sharp white nail suddenly jutted out of the coffin, and then the coffin lid was broken and thrown away. The male sky corpse who had been dominated in the burial plot number 93 slowly sat up. Inside of the 2 empty sockets flared up many peculiar light dots. With a closer look, those light dots resembled the life seals of Shi Yan's life and death seal indeed. Those tiny sparkling life seals were getting clearer. A kind of indescribable forces seemed to be born. A miracle was happening. Crack, crack. A female sky corpse in the other coffin also sat up. Deep inside of the empty eyes flared up strange lights as well. Its white, pale skin glowed shiningly. Its body seemed to have gained its vitality again. Luxuriant brushes and plants were dispersive everywhere in the Sun Island. There were uncluttered big bluestone paved roads on the island. Many warriors from different seas gathered into groups of 3 or 5, wandering around. Most of them were heading towards the sacred light mountain, whisperingly talking and laughing. Yin knitted his eyebrows. Under the burning sunlight, his body was still frigid. He had unintentionally absorbed a part of the icy power of the ice-cold flame, which was now running all over his body. On the scorching island, his entire body was as chilled as ice, quite similar to several dangerous disciples of the corpse's god sect, which gave other people the feeling that he was too unfriendly and gloomy to get acquainted easily. As for the 3 people of Tian Mo's group, they had cultivated the Yin techniques, together with their different body structures compared to the humankind's as well as their pale faces. Their bodies naturally emitted the cold and gloomy aura already. Therefore, the burning heat was automatically pushed away from their bodies while they were on their way. Even the blazing sunlight seemed impossible to shine on their bodies. Many warriors traveling on the same way suddenly trembled, feeling freezing inside when they approached more than 10 meters close to them. Those warriors instinctively stayed far away from them quickly with fear and hatred appearing on their faces. They assumed that the 4 of them were the high-class principals of the corpse's god sect. In the endless sea, only the disciples of the corpse's god sect cultivated that secret icy technique. Even in the summer, their bodies were all frigid, and they wore thick tunics with the appearance that seemed to tell the others not to get any closer. The corpse's god sect was not the strongest force in the endless sea, but the most mystical force that frightened many warriors. If it was not necessary, ordinary warriors never wanted to contact with the disciples of the corpse's god sect. It was the instinctual resistance. Everyone was subconsciously scared of the corpse's god sect, afraid that they would have been condensed and refined into a corpse. 2 ambiguous flows of soul approached toward Yin, quietly went into his sea of consciousness, then floated around inside, but weren't welcomed by his host soul. These 2 flows of soul targeted only at Yin himself without any wicked intentions nor attacking forces, only the joy and excitement. As these hidden 2 souls were initially ambiguous and targeted at Yin only, the 3 people of Tian Mo's group could vaguely sense them a little bit just because they were standing next to him. The others would be unable to realize them. Yin used his host soul to control and sense the 2 flows which were moving inside his sea of consciousness. He wanted to know the opponent's identity through these 2 souls. However, these 2 souls were too ambiguous, which meant that the ones who had sent them out didn't know how to use their soul forces nor enhance the soul consciousness. Although Yin had concentrated a lot to sense, he couldn't get any information just yet. The 5 devils in the sea of consciousness seemed to be very excited with these 2 souls. They were like evil monsters that wanted to pull and swallow the 2 souls, but got intimidated and was prevented by his sea of consciousness, and thus, they didn't succeed. Who are they after all? Yin felt suspicious with his knitted eyebrows. However, no matter how hard he thought, he still couldn't figure out. He suddenly ceased his steps. Yin retrieved the suspicious thoughts in his mind, raised his head up looking ahead. His eyes slightly squinted. The corner of his mouth lightly formed an indifferent curve. Ahead of him was a group of males and females talking and laughing, walking towards him. They seemed to be in a very good mood. A flirty woman among them wore a thin red silk dress. The snow-white area beneath the thin silk was dazzling. That woman wore a charming, smiling face. Her face was as pretty as cherry blossoms, her cheeks reddened, and her sparkling eyes were lustful as if she was very satisfied after passionate lovemaking. A guy with an eager fat face, bean-sized eyes was next to her. The fat of his body shook while he was talking. There were varieties of precious, colorful stone rings on his big, fat fingers. Each of them was the storage ring used to store stuff, which was containing the unknown number of marvelous treasures. A middle-aged scholar in a blue blouse, who had a cold face and a cruel, wicked appearance, clasped his hands behind his back while walking and thinking of something. 7 females and males with different levels of cultivation's base, who wore different kinds of clothes, were walking behind those three people with respectful faces. They were discussing something with each other and quietly observing the three people ahead as if they were afraid that their noises could be too loud and thus they would be scolded by the three people ahead. The three people leading the group were chatting and laughing, gradually coming close to Shi Yan's group from the opposite direction. The flirty woman unintentionally glanced at Shi Yan and then immediately turned around and continued talking with the fat guy next to her. However, after a few steps, she seemed to have remembered something, turned around again looking at Shi Yan, then lifted her finger with the painted nail, pointing towards Shi Yan from a distance and said with surprise, You are that little rascal? Recently, In Hai kept sending his people to her place to ask for information. Shi Yan's image also came across her mind sometimes. As suddenly seeing Shi Yan on this sun island of the Three Gods sect, she instantly remembered. Protector Sui, long time no see. Shi Yan slightly laughed. The flirty woman was Sui Yueru of the Yin Yang Wonderland. When Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan had gotten stranded on a desert island, they had got on an iron boat of the Yin Yang Wonderland and had made contact with Sui Yueru for a period. As he had refused to be the subordinate of this woman, he had been harmed by the unity of this bitch and Li Zhuang, almost becoming a corpse of the corpse's god sect. The fat guy next to her was the great elder Chinduo of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. The ferocious scholar in the blue blouse was Dongfang He. On the Minluo Island, because of the ice-cold flame, Shi Yan had suffered a great loss in Chenduo's and Dongfang's hands. If he hadn't been lucky, he could have had been killed. Shi Yan's eyes were half closed. His face was strange and unpredictable. He revealed a smile. Chapter 300. You Can't Go. Chapter 300. You Can't Go. Sui Yueru, Chinduo, and Dongfang He all knew Shi Yan. Among them, only Sui Yueru didn't know of his relations with the Yang family. After the incident on the Minluo Island, Chinduo and Dongfang He had suffered a great pressure, been blamed and punished by their masters. From that, they had also known Shi Yan's origin and identity. After being astonished by the encounter with Shi Yan, Sui Yueru suddenly remembered the important matter that In Hai had instructed her. After staring at Shi Yan for a while, she burst into laughter, then spoke to Chinduo and Dongfang He besides her. This little rascal and I used to be interrelated with each other that year. I didn't expect that 5 years later, he could now step on the Sun Island. It is very interesting. While smilingly talking, Sui Yueru quietly winked at Chinduo and Dongfang He, signaling these guys to take actions to help her give Shi Yan a lesson. Little rascal, we meet again. The fat on Chinduo's face shook as he put on a broad smile. Because of you, I have suffered many difficulties. I have paid not a small price for what happened on the Minluo Island. You have hidden really well, though. Because of you, almost 100 of the Dongfang family's members have all died. 7 islands have also been completely mopped up. I have been badly blamed for this as well. Dongfang's face became somber while speaking. Sui Yueru was surprised, covered her mouth subconsciously, exposing fear. She looked at Shi Yan, then swept her eyes to Chinduo and Dongfang He, who were angrily gritting their teeth. She finally couldn't help but scream out, "Oh, you guys all know him?" Dongfang He harumphed coldly and said, not only knowing but also being deeply impressed. Chinduo didn't reply. Although the smile on his face was still friendly, he nodded toward the fellows behind him. The followers of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland understood what their leader meant. They dispersed out with a cold smile on their faces and then besieged Shi Yan in only 3 breaths. Are you Shi Yan? The layers of fat on Chinduo's body shook violently. His bean-sized eyes shot out a cold light. If it were 3 years ago, I wouldn't have dared to do anything to you. Regretfully, now it is different from before. After Yang Tian Emperor has been confined, the Yang family remains just a name. Presently, if I want to do something to you, I am afraid that no one can help you. Shi Yan's look was frigid and emotionless. A faint smile beamed out from the corners of his mouth. His eyes coldly raked over the 5 people surrounding him, then said, "These 5 people only don't seem enough to catch me." Not enough? As Chinduo burst into laughter, the fat on his body shook violently. He said, All of them, and you are ranked at the same Earth realm. You alone can deal with 5 of them? Don't be so overconfident. Dong Fong he knitted his eyebrows, quietly took a few steps back. His eyes scanned over the 3 people of Tian Mo's group, but couldn't see through their real cultivation base. Thus, he felt a little bit suspicious and didn't dare to act recklessly. Chinduo and Sui Yuerue also moved back silently and didn't take any actions by themselves. In fact, as they couldn't figure out the cultivation base of the 3 people of Tian Mo's group, they wanted to use those 5 Earth Realm warriors to probe, hopefully to force Tian Mo and the other 2 guys to take actions in order to know their exact cultivation base. Chinduo and his group knew that a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. The Yang family's potential was still very tremendous. Although they had confidently said that Yang Tian Emperor had been confined and that the Yang family was currently merely a name, they still felt frightened deeply inside. They assumed that Tian Mo, Kaba, and Yiming were the high-class warriors of the Yang family, hence, they didn't dare to take any actions yet. Do we have to kill them all? Tian Mo slightly squinted, directly used his soul to ask for Shi Yan's opinion. Shi Yan shook his head, signaling the 3 people of Tian Mo's group to step away. Until 3 of them were already around 10 meters away, he suddenly stormed into one Earth Realm warrior of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. A horrendous flow of aura was discharging from his body all of a sudden. The electric shift had been used. Shi Yan's figure was like electricity, or Jiaolong jumping out of the sea. The blue stones underneath his feet were broken into small blocks. Fist-sized stone rubbles were flung out everywhere, floating around in the air together with his sturdy body, then dashed all together towards those people ahead. The blue stones were crumbled as if they were tossed up by a big hand. Countless broken blue stones were dancing in the air. Together with the ear-splitting sound, all of the blue stone rubbles plunged towards those 5 warriors. Crack, crack. His sturdy body was like a big, heavy club, striking the chest of one Earth Realm warrior of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. The sound of broken bones resounded. This warrior's body was like a sharp sword flying towards the opposite way. When this warrior was still in the air, 7 holes on his face had already bled. He had been dead even before falling down on the ground. Without any resistance, the Earth Realm warrior of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland had been killed in such a short time. He hadn't even had time to take out his spiritual treasure. Chinduo grimaced and was startled. His bean-sized eyes beamed out a terrified light. Dong Fenghe's face changed. He became gloomier. Su Yuerue was frightened at heart, unbelievably looking at Shi Yan. She backed off a few steps unconsciously, extending the distance with Shi Yan while her red lips were shivering. Swoosh, swoosh. The rubbles in the sky, like hundreds of powerful and tremendous iron fists, from Shi Yan in the center, shot out circularly. Hundreds of flows of violent purified power had been added to the blue stones, inside of which also had some streams of soul senses that were hardly detected. Countless rubbles, which were like fists with eyes, flew around, bringing the extremely outrageous aura that covering the rest of the 4 warriors of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland. Against everyone's expectation, those flying bluestone blocks didn't fall down but revolved in the air. After every short amount of time being revolved, the bluestone blocks' aura became more tremendous. As their forces were mightier, the murderous power also increased naturally. Not far from here, some warriors, who saw the fight happening, were surprised as well as excited. They noisily came closer but kept a safe distance, observing from afar. Chinduo's eyes flared up a murderous look. He revealed a snicker while his fat arm, which was like a pig's feet, had already jutted out of his sleeve. He seemed to be about to take actions. It was unknown when some beams of powerful red light suddenly shot out from the bush nearby. The beams of red light fell down exactly on Chinduo's arms, which had just jutted out of his sleeve. The burning flame produced more fires on Chinduo's arm. More than 5,000 of true sun fires went through that arm of his, condensed in his palm but didn't launch any attacks. They seemed to warn him not to take actions. Chinduo's fat face changed in fear. He felt freezing inside while looking at the nearby bush. Li Fu of the 3 Gods sect was also as fat as Chinduo with a broad smile on his face as well. He walked out of the bush embarrassedly, clasped his hands to respectfully greet Chinduo while smilingly said, "Sorry, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to target Chenji. However, according to our sect's rule, warriors with the same level can battle on the island, but the predecessors with the higher realm are not allowed to get involved. This is the strictest rule. Chenji, please forgive and let it go." Chinduo looked at Li Fu with a strange face. His eyes were full of suspicions. Chinduo did know that the Three Gods sect had this rule, but it wasn't always rigid. There had been some people violating this rule sometimes, but the Three Gods sect wouldn't have strongly interfered. On the previous day, he still had had some drinks with Li Fu, talking and laughing. They had even discussed some rare cultivating materials with each other. As being fat, people with the same sky realm, Li Fu and he shared many things in common. As he actually had a good fellowship with Li Fu, although he had known that Li Fu had been nearby, he hadn't really bothered and had almost taken actions to humiliate Shi Yin. Unexpectedly, as soon as he was about to move, Li Fu appeared out of nowhere. This annoyed him very much as he didn't know why Li Fu covered up Shi Yin. Under Chen Duo's scrutinized look, Li Fu only forced a smile, shook his head, clasped his hands to greet, but didn't loosen his force which was oppressing Chen Duo. Boom, 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 boom. At this time, low gloomy sounds reverberated constantly. The four warriors of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland had been hit by countless bluestones. Blood gushed out from their bodies. One after the other fell down on the ground and never stood up again. Among these four warriors, 3 of them had had their heads blossomed. The other one had been hit through his eyes, piercing into his brain. They were all miserably dead. After the rubbles had fallen down on the ground, Shi Yin was still standing coldly. He had actually never taken any actions. After the only hit that had killed the first warrior, the Bluestone's power had been constantly increasing. The recent tremendous attack seemed not to be caused by him. However, everyone who looked at his frigid and emotionless eyes would have the feeling that those 4 warriors of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland had been dead in his hands. The flows of pure aura quietly flew out from those 5 warriors and then slowly went into the pores on his body, being completely absorbed by all the meridians. The whole occurrence was not easy to be detected by ordinary people. The corpses of the 5 dead warriors shriveled gradually as if they had completely lost all of the water and blood. Li Fu revealed a forced smile, then shouted, "Clean it up quickly." Some warriors in the Three Gods sect's costumes appeared from several dark corners all of a sudden. They calmly carried the 5 dead bodies away after taking out the storage bags from the dead warriors and throwing them to Chinduo. Not long after that, the 5 dead bodies disappeared. Even the broken bluestones were quickly paved with new bluestones. Shi Yin indifferently looked at Li Fu with a frigid face. Li Fu felt awkward under Shi Yin's scrutinized look. Sweat already beaded on his back. "Let's go." Dongfang, he seemed to figure out something, signaling Chinduo, who was extremely enraged. He said, "It seems that the Three Gods sect wants to protect this little rascal. Don't mess around here anymore. We will see him later." Chinduo harumphed coldly, flipped his sleeves, and left. Sui Yuerue looked at Shi Yin bewilderedly. With full of surprise and suspicion, she then also left, following the other 2 people. "You can't go." Shi Yin spoke up frigidly all of a sudden. The complexions of the 3 people Chinduo, Dongfang He, and Sui Yuerue changed slightly. The 3 of them stopped, turning around with a sober countenance under the attentive looks of some warriors from afar. "Little rascal, do you really want to die?" Chinduo coldly smiled. The usual smiling look on his face had completely vanished. "Make them more obedient." Shi Yin knitted his eyebrows, nodded his head to signal Tian. A violent tornado of souls like the angry surging sea, which was released by Tian, suddenly stormed outward and covered the sea of consciousness of Chinduo, Dongfang He, and Sui Yuerue. Their faces changed dramatically. They couldn't help but scream out in pain. Their eyes were full of fear, unbelievably looking at Tian. "God realm!" The 3 of them shouted simultaneously. Now they finally knew Tian's real cultivation realm. Chapter 301. Showing the real ability. Chapter 301, Showing the Real Ability. Tian instantly took actions. His tremendous soul, which was dangerous as a deep abyss or a surging sea, submerged the three people of Qin Duo's group just in a blink. The seas of consciousness of Qin Duo's group were like the flickering flames of an oil lamp under the wind that could die out at any minute. Now, Qin Duo, Dongfang He, Sui Yuerui knew Tian Mo's real realm, which frightened them so much that they hardly uttered a word nor had any resistant intentions. They just hoped that the Three Gods sect would quickly send their high-class warriors to maintain justice. Some white-gray rays that looked like ferocious solid needles shot out from deep inside of Tian Mo's eyes. He calmly looked at Qin Duo, Dongfang He, and Sui Yuerui, who were holding their heads with miserable faces, screaming out constantly. They felt that their souls could be broken shortly, then both their bodies and souls would perish. Young Master Yin, Li Fu couldn't pretend that he didn't know Shi Yin. He took one step forward, clasped his hands and nattered. This place is the Three Gods sect's territory, and we have our own rules. Young Master Yin, please don't put us in an awkward situation. Not far from here, about 10 warriors of other forces were observing, didn't dare to come closer. But they all felt startled and shocked. They didn't know Shi Yin. However, because Qin Duo, Dongfang He, and Sui Yuerui had arrived at the Sun Island a long time earlier, their activities on the island had been very vibrant. Many people knew about them and their identities. Perhaps Sui Yuerui's position in the evil wonderland was not high, but Qin Duo and Dongfang He were the important persons of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland and the Dongfang family. Regardless of either the cultivation base or the realm, these two people were very outstanding. Together with their noble status, not many ordinary people wanted to mess with them. Shi Yin had messed around with them, though, which surprised a lot of people. However, they were more curious about Shi Yin's identity. After Yang Tian Emperor had been confined, all the forces of the Yang family had vanished. The rank of the Yang family had dropped tens of thousands of zhong. Theoretically, there shouldn't be any members of the Yang family to join this gathering. But Shi Yin was here. Not only did he come here, but he also brought a God Realm warrior with him. In the Kiara Sea, God Realm warriors were the peak of all the existences. Only the leaders of powerful forces were able to enter this realm. Facing any types of forces, a God Realm warrior was always a very important and terrifying person. Although there had always been a rumor that the Yang family didn't just have one God Realm warrior, who was Tian Emperor, other people had never witnessed any other God Realm warriors of the Yang family. Tian Mo's appearance had astonished a lot of people and also brought suspicions at the same time. Was he the hidden God Realm warrior of the Yang family? With this thought, everyone's looks now gazed at Tian Mo with fear and respect. They discreetly remembered every single bit of Tian Mo's commotions to tell their fellows later. Young Master Yin, Li Fu miserably begged, but didn't dare to give the warning like what he had done with Qin Duo. Shi Yin's face remained unchanged. He knitted his eyebrows slightly. His eyes coldly looked at the three people of Qin Duo's group who were screaming bitterly under Tian Mo's horrendous soul attack. The seas of consciousness of these three people were gradually swamped with Tian Mo's soul, which was like thousands of sabers slashing their sea of consciousness. Suffering the visual soul pain was many times more uncomfortable than suffering external injuries. Shi Yin had already experienced this plenty of times. Those three people were screaming and crying in fear. Sui Yuerui was painfully screeching so hard that tears and snots also flowed out. Shi Yin had felt joyful looking at this scene at first, but the joy gradually turned down. He started feeling eventually disrelished. Shi Yin swung his arm, signaling Tian Mo to stop. Those three people of Qin Duo's group were trembling violently as their seas of consciousness had gradually calmed down after having been stirred up into restlessness. Silver-patterned circles suddenly diffused out from those three people's heads. Their eyes, which had been blanked and dazed, were now restored to be conscious little by little, and then totally recovered afterwards. Those three people were now disheveled and dirty. Their bodies were covered with dust. Their faces were full of tears and snots mixing up. They looked really miserable. Hick! One female disciple of the three gods sect suddenly jeered as the scene looked very absurd. She instantly felt improper, quickly stuck her tongue out, and shut up. Several warriors of other forces, who were also watching, couldn't help but want to burst into laughing. However, they had to uneasily restrain it, which made them look very strange. After having regained their consciousness, as the three people of Chinduo's group saw their blousy appearance, they were all so angry that they wanted to vomit blood, resentful for not being able to dig a hole and plunge down there. They didn't dare to raise their heads up, hastily dusted off their faces, and then covered their faces, leaving without even having the intention of questioning Shi Yin. "You can't go just yet," Shi Yin shouted out loud again. The bodies of those tree people trembled. They turned their heads around with hateful faces and stared at Shi Yin with a daring manner. Especially Sui Yuerue, who had always boasted about her elegant and charming appearance, now looked very crummy, like an insane woman in front of many people. She had never ever thought about this humiliation, not even in her most unpleasant dreams. She felt extremely ashamed. Her grimaced face looked even more furious as her resentful eyes contained an endless murderous aura, as if she could uncontrollably risk her life at any minute. "Shi Yin, you will have to pay 10 times of this humiliation today," Dongfang he said with a cruel face. "Go back and tell your predecessors, 3 of your forces, each will have to give out 5 islands to compensate for the Yang family." Shi Yin didn't care about Dongfang's intimidation. He spoke up while standing still. "I want to see your compensations in 1 month." As soon as he had finished his words, most of the warriors who were watching nearby clamored. While the demon dwellers were invading on a mass scale currently, all forces should unite, putting all of their efforts to deal with the demon dwellers instead of rebelling. Shi Yin, however, did the opposite. He clearly wanted to fish in troubled waters and didn't even have the intention to negotiate. What was happening? Everyone was impaled by fear. They secretly blamed Shi Yin for being lowly and for not being concerned of the current big picture. They were also frightened because of Shi Yin's shamelessness and arrogance at the same time. "Based on what reasons do you dare to have such a request?" Chinduo gritted his teeth and asked. "On only them." Shi Yin casually pointed at Tian and Mo, Kaba, and Yiming. Kaba and Yiming quietly revealed a cold smile, arrogantly looking at the other people. The earth-shaking aura was suddenly projected from their bodies. The warriors surrounding instantly felt that their seas of consciousness were violently shaking. The profound chi in their bodies was like wild horses escaping from the riddles and not listening to the orders anymore. They felt helpless deep inside. The warriors with low realms quickly sank to their knees, as their knees were totally flabby. It looked like they were being pressed down by a big mountain. God Realm warriors. Needless to say more, everyone immediately knew that Yiming and Kaba were also the God Realm warriors just through their tremendous auras. Three God Realm warriors. Someone among the warriors surrounding mourned. Every one of them felt freezing, subconsciously moved backwards while their faces turned to totally white pale. Li Fu bent down so low that his head almost touched his chest. His fat body slightly trembled. He no longer had any intentions of begging Shi Yin to stop. Chen Duo and Dongfang he were bewildered as if their brain had been knocked out and shaken till dazed. Su Yuerue had actually had the intentions of vengeance earlier. However, she was now holding her ruffled hair. Her face was half smiling, half crying. Her eyes were full of desperation and submission. The intentions of taking revenge had vanished out of her mind afterwards. "You can go now." Shi Yan's face was disturbed. He waved his hand and urged, "Get lost. Don't let me see you again." The 3 people of Chinduo's group were scared out of their wits, miserably running away like stray dogs, staggering on the way as if their steps couldn't be even steady. The shock that Shi Yin had brought them had been far beyond their endurance. Moreover, Etianimo had also messed with their souls, which had led them to this scene of severe misery. This thing, Li Fu raised up his head afterward, even with a humbler manner. "I still have to report what has happened to my predecessor. Young Master Yin, please don't blame me. We have our own rules." "What?" Shi Yin nodded calmly. "I didn't kill them, just threatened them." Does it also violate the rules? Li Fu was bewildered, seriously thought for a while. He then felt that this also made sense. The 3 people of Chinduo's group didn't get injured seriously, only lost their faces in front of many people. They were still alive and healthy, so the rule wasn't violated indeed. We'll take a walk around. While Li Fu was still in a daze, Shi Yin nodded towards the 3 people of Tian Mo's group and then stepped forward passing Li Fu. As the scene had been over, the surrounding warriors also dispersed out with astonished faces. Everyone disappeared shortly. Inside of the dark red stone chamber, a group of warriors of the corpse's god sect was wearing black tunics. Their bodies were full of miasmatic aura. Their eyes were frigid and cruel, looking at the 2 wooden coffins in the chamber. Hai was one of them. In the chamber, the 2 sky corpses were being confined inside in the wooden coffins. One warrior of the corpse's god sect with a fierce face was wearing a devil mask. His body was covered in a big black tunic. His eyes shot out a cruel, devilish, deep blue light. Hierarch, did something really happen with these 2 sky corpses? Hai was standing beside him, bending down with a respectful manner, asking for his opinion. The hierarch of the corpse's god sect slightly nodded. The devilish, deep blue light was retrieved little by little. These 2 sky corpses seem to have had a little of consciousness. This is really a miracle that could amaze everyone. These 2 sky corpses couldn't definitely have had the consciousness in such a short time like this. It is still very long time before they could become the king corpses. They couldn't have had the transformation that quickly. Their transformation is probably related to the little rascal that year. Hai considered carefully for a while before speaking. That little rascal, the hierarch of the corpse's god sect, harumphed coldly. His frigid eyes shifted toward Hai and said, "Could only one weak warrior have been even more miraculous than the secret technique of the corpse's god sect which has been transmitted until now? If he is able to make the sky corpses become the king corpses in a short time, the corpse temper technique that has been studied by the corpse's god sect's predecessors then becomes a joke?" Hai felt fearfully freezing, quickly bowed his head, and blaming himself for being stupid. "I will temporarily control their consciousness that has just woken up. If they are not affected by the outer forces, these 2 sky corpses will no longer have any anomalous changes in a short time." The hierarch of the corpse's god sect contemplated for a while before further instructing. "Before the gathering on the Sun Island finishes, you just need to keep an eye on them." Chapter 302, Understood. Chapter 302, Understood. Shi Yin suddenly stopped. He didn't understand why the 2 flows of feeble souls, which had originally hovered around inside his body, had disappeared all of a sudden, as if they had been grabbed and thrown out by someone's powerful sensing forces. Those 2 souls were not really strong, but they thoroughly understood the way to control the soul forces. They were not supported by any other soul senses except for their own admirable feelings. Although Shi Yin didn't have a profound understanding of souls, he had only based it on his own interest to discover all of the secrets of those 2 souls. When those 2 souls disappeared, his connection with them was also interrupted. He could just only identify the general direction of those 2 souls. When those souls vanished, their direction had also changed, which left him no time to take actions, and was hardly able to define their exact direction. "What is it?" Tian Mo was bewildered, incomprehensively looked at him. "Has something happened?" Shi Yin nodded and said, "My sense has some changes." Suddenly, it couldn't recognize the 2 souls. "Perhaps something has happened there." "After all, what has happened? How come you've only had that feeling after we've come here? Is there somebody trying to intentionally instruct us on something?" Tian Mo's innermost feelings had been vibrated, as many speculations had come up in his mind. He himself was very wise, so he definitely had many suspicions. Especially the Sun Island, which was presently packed with many warriors, and the other forces from the different seas would arrive shortly. The situation on the Sun Island had never been as complicated as of now. "Not really." After shaking his head and contemplating for a while, Shi Yin said, "Forget it. If we can't sense it, we will directly go there to check it out. It is near here anyway. We probably can find out something." Etianimo showed his agreement. Suddenly, the three people Etianimo, Kaba, Yiming all raised their heads up, looking towards the sky with serious faces. Shi Yan's sea of consciousness shook. He vaguely realized a little pressure, as if someone in the sky was peeping at him. He couldn't help but lift his head up, releasing his soul consciousness towards the clouds in the sky. His soul consciousness spread out, turned into thousands of strings of consciousness dispersing everywhere, moving in the sky. Each of consciousness in his head was trying to discover all senses, including the tiny ones. However, he still didn't realize anything. He then had to retrieve his consciousness. "It is the soul of a God Realm warrior peeping us," Etianimo said with a serious and solemn face, "and not only one." Shi Yan nodded with his unchanged face. He seemed to have soon anticipated something, faintly said, "The three of you didn't restrain your forces, instead, released your God Realm powers. It has obviously attracted some people's attention, not to mention that you are a big question for the people here. Thus, being watched by other God Realm warriors is something normal. Should we warn them a little bit?" Yiming grinned and then said with a frigid face, "As being God Realm warriors, using soul forces to fight is not normal. In terms of this, the three of us can certainly prevent our opponents. The most profound understanding of the demonic Sound Clan is the soul fighting." Etianimo and Kaba also showed their arrogance and confidence. Shi Yan shook his head while smiling and said, "No need. Although we've come to the Sun Island this time to intentionally display our abilities, we shouldn't be too arrogant and obstinate. Otherwise, other forces will unite and become our enemies, which is not good for us. Right now, the meeting on the island hasn't started yet. Everyone all has their own plans. We should observe the situations of some important persons here first to see what their thoughts are." The three people of Etianmo's group nodded, implicating that they had understood. Shi Yan continued to walk. It took him 2 hours to arrive at the place where the scents had originated. He saw some red houses from a distance, all of which were made of sharp red stones. Many images of beasts and birds were engraved on the stone pillars. A block consisted of about 12 houses. Grapes and bananas were planted around the area. This was actually the scene of tropical forests. However, when Shi Yan had arrived, he had felt that the aura here was very dense, as it overwhelmed the area with gloomy, devilish, icy auras. The houses were burning hot. Even insects couldn't exist here. It seemed that even the stupidest creature also knew that this place was abnormal. Very dense in aura, Shi Yan knitted his eyebrows while whisperingly said, "This is the place of the corpse's god sect." Li Fu suddenly stormed out, then bent down and said with a humble manner, "Since the followers of the corpse's god sect have come and stayed here, this place has become extremely miasmatic. We also know that the corpse's god sect's members have peculiar personalities, hence, we have arranged for them to stay in this remote area. These houses here all have cellars, which were used to store good wines before. After the corpse's god sect has arrived, these cellars are used to keep the coffins with corpses inside." The corpse burial. Shi Yan's eyes suddenly lit up. A light flashed up in his head. He instantly figured out who had sent out the soul auras to his consciousness earlier. A dusty memory which was like the river water bursting the dike massively rolled back in his head. That was a place similar to the corpse burial area. Exactly. 2 sky corpses. Shi Yan suddenly revealed a smile, looked at Li Fu, nodded and asked, "May I ask you a question? How many senior persons of the corpse's god sect are there in those houses?" Li Fu's face stiffened, laughed, and said with a grimacing face, "This is not allowed to be disclosed, young master. You also know we have rules." "I know that you guys have rules." The storage ring on Shi Yan's finger brightened. A blazing bag emerged in his palm. He smilingly gave the bag, which contained pure crystals, to Li Fu, and gently said, "I only asked the identities of the people staying in those houses." Li Fu was frightened and didn't dare to receive the bag. He bent down, took 3 steps backward, covering his chest while breathing heavily and screaming, "Young Master Yin, you shouldn't ridicule me like this." "Ah." Shi Yan was bewildered, surprisingly looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Young Master Yin, you have actually known it clearly." Li Fu revealed a forced smile, took another few steps backward again. His face was all red. Inside your body, there is something that is able to oppress my powers. If you stand too close to me, my martial spirits will be very frightened. Shi Yin was startled and his eyes became confused. After hesitating for a while, he suddenly asked, "What you meant was that there is something inside of my body that possibly oppresses your martial spirits and makes you subconsciously be scared of me." Li Fu bent down, nodding constantly. "I didn't expect that it also has this effect. The martial spirits of Ouyingji seems to have some effects with the Three Gods sect." Shi Yin quietly mumbled to himself, then smiled, meaningfully looked at Li Fu and said, "Hasn't your hierarch instructed you to follow us closely? I am not a normal guest. It is why I have such a special privilege, isn't it?" Li Fu's face slightly changed. He nodded once again, miserably said, "Young master, you are not like the other people." What else did he say? "I need to pay attention to you to avoid any unexpected events. That is why when Shinduo wanted to take actions with you, I immediately got involved in preventing it. However, you have had the support from honorable people. I actually did a useless thing." Li Fu awkwardly smiled. "That's how it is." Shi Yin thought for a while, then nodded, looked at Li Fu and said, "The fact that your hierarch had laid his eyes on me is already a violation of the rule. I don't think he will blame you. If you don't tell me, I myself will rummage through your memory to find it. This is your reluctant choice anyway." Shi Yin quietly glanced at Tian and Mo. Li Fu sweated a lot, feeling that his back had been totally wet. He cursed Shi Yin for being cruel and ignoble. His face, however, displayed fear. He hastily said, Don't. I will tell you. How can I not say it?" "Say it." The hierarch of the Corpse's God sect, Qing Ming, together with 5 protectors, more than 30 disciples, and some followers, Li Fu was so frightened and quickly said with a low voice. He told Shi Yin about the information related to the Corpse's God sect very clearly. "All right." Shi Yin waited until Li Fu finished, then flipped his sleeve, implicating that he had already dismissed Li Fu. "You'd better go a little bit far from here, otherwise you will not be fine if something happens. Being here is even worse. So, you'd better not linger and get lost." "What do you want to do?" Li Fu frighteningly asked. "You can't just do it recklessly. We have rules." "I know you have rules." Shi Yin felt annoyed and then urged, "If you continue staying here, you might violate the Corpse's God sect's rules. You should go back and tell Tang Yuan that I know what to do. Moreover, let him know that I intentionally have something to do with the Corpse's God sect's people." While talking, Shi Yin could sense a strange spiritual power inside his heart, which was as hot as the sun. He quietly poured a stream of the profound qi into it. Through the movement of the profound qi, he captured the scorching power of the sun and secretly poured a little bit of it on Li Fu's body. Li Fu was scared of Shi Yin so much that his whole body sweated. While he was still hesitating, he suddenly felt that his martial spirits reacted violently while the profound qi inside his body was extremely chaotic. Even his sea of consciousness was also shaken constantly as if it was about to fly out of his brain. Li Fu was frightened. He knew that Shi Yin had done something with it. Thus, he didn't dare to hesitate any longer and instantly ran away. Li Fu fled out of sight in just a blink. Even his aura also vanished completely. Shi Yin was astonished. His face looked strange. He retrieved the aura, which was the fusion of the profound qi and the martial spirits. He took a deep breath and then walked towards the temporary residences of the Corpse's God sect. Creak. The door of a stone house in the middle of the block suddenly opened, from which miasmatic auras flowed out. "Look, the owner of this place is welcoming us." Shi Yin smiled without any fear and quickly walked over there. On the way, he suddenly spoke up, "I am Shi Yin. I have something to consult the predecessors of the Corpse's God sect. I hope the predecessors will instruct me." The 3 people of Tian Mo's group quickly followed him. Chapter 303. The Superb Adjoin Corpse's Flame. Chapter 303. The Superb Adjoin Corpse's Flame. Inside the stone hall, cold icy power spread out everywhere. A flow of white dead aura turned out to be composed of devilish faces, wrapping around the stone pillars, which looked like those devils engraved on the stone pillars had just revived. There were 5 oil lanterns mounted on the stone wall. The flames were shiny blue and dim, which brought other people a feeling that these flames could have died out at any time. In front of the wall, at a dark, gloomy corner, there was a figure standing lonely. That person's eyes were glazed. His body was big with the dense miasmatic aura around, which was like a long-time dead corpse. As soon as he had entered this stone house, Yin couldn't help but frown. His soul consciousness diffused out, but impossibly realized any living auras nor streams of souls. There were no living humans. That figure over there was actually a corpse with a pale face and stiffened limbs, served as a servant. It probably didn't have a high-level position. As it saw Yan's group going in, it turned a hook on the wall. A creak sound resounded and the stone wall in front of Yin started to move accordingly to some formation, gradually forming a path running downward. That corpse was still blankly standing at the corner without any human emotions. It didn't even look at Yin and the other people as if it only had one mission, which was to open this path. Yan's face remained unchanged. He looked at the 3 people of Tian Mo's group and nodded, then mumbled to himself, purposely make a mystery out of simple things. He slowly stepped down on the stone stairs going deep down inside of the earth. He wanted to see what peculiar things were awaiting him down there. Although the corpse's god sect was mysterious as they had cultivated very inhumane secret techniques which had frightened other people, Yin was not afraid of it too much. Anyway, the 3 people of Tian Mo's group had the god realm cultivation base. In terms of souls, the 3 of them were far better than numerous people, although their body's sturdiness was not as good as the other god realm warriors. In a battle, the unity of these 3 could easily defeat any god realm warrior. Yin believed that even a god realm warrior at the highest level would have run away strenuously when being besieged by them. Under the powerful soul oppression, it could sometimes have been more dangerous than a physical attack. With the 3 of them having his back, not to mention this temporary residence of the corpse's god sect, even the headquarters of the corpse's god sect would not be able to stop him from entering. After having gone for about 10 zhong, Yin still didn't see any lights. Luckily, the 3 people of Tian Mo's group was still following him closely. Thus, he wasn't scared, just quietly diffused his soul consciousness around to sense even the tiniest transformation, trying to find the living aura. Puff! In the ink-black darkness where one impossibly saw one's own 5 fingers, a weak green light suddenly appeared. It didn't look different from fires hovering around in the air. Besides, there was also a dull flame of an oil lamp, which was like a ferocious ghost observing around. A cool breeze flooded over, wanted to absorb itself into his body. With a cold smile on his face, Yin activated the heating forces of the sun-refined spirits. The scorching aura of those forces moved around in his body, burning that cool breeze up. Boom! A blue flame inflamed ahead of them. After that blue flame had ignited, 10 deep blue flames suddenly emerged. In just a breath, there appeared 18 cups of oil lamps with flickering flames everywhere. The flames lit up the place, hence, the scene also started to appear. A line of coffins was placed neatly across the cellar. A flow of dense dead aura spread out from inside of every coffin. The dead aura was chalky. A flow of dead aura slowly flew to Yin. Yan's eyes closed slightly. He suddenly shouted, "Show yourself." The heat of the 1,000-year earth flame discharged out of his body. Just in a short time, Yan's body had turned into an igniter. Many flames like torches burst out from his body. Before that dead aura could reach him, it had already smoked fizzingly and been burned up into ashes. None of the dead aura could have touched him. Some figures, one by one, descended on the coffins from the roof of the cellar. The hierarch of the corpse's god sect Qingming was wearing a black tunic and a blue mask with fangs. He stood on a coffin while his green pupils kept scanning Yin. He then said with a weak voice, "Are you one of the Yangs?" In Hai stood on the coffin on the left, quietly evaluated Yin with somber eyes. "Consider it true." Yin nodded indifferently, closed his eyes sensing around. He suddenly goggled, looking toward the two wooden coffins under Hai's feet, then said with a smile, I come here for the two sky corpses in those two coffins. It can be said that they and I somehow have fate. When I had arrived at the Sun Island, these two sky corpses had called for me, which led me here. It's you indeed. Hai's face suddenly changed, becoming more somber. He then grinned and said, Little rascal, at the burial area number 93 that year, I didn't know which way you used to enthrall my sky corpses, making them slaughter even their own fellows and helping you escape from the burial area. Well, you are now on the Sun Island. You want to make use of these two sky corpses again, don't you? Ha ha ha. Today, as the owner of these sky corpses on this island, I want to see how you can break through my oppressive forces. Hai, shut up. Qingming bowed and shouted to prevent Hai from babbling. He then coldly and seriously looked at Shi Yin. He uttered weakly, at the burial area that year, these two sky corpses were controlled by you and didn't obey the great elder Hai's commands. They woke up and acted accordingly to your will. Is this true? Shi Yin thought for a while, nodded, and said, That's true. There emerged many small flames inside those green eyes. The flames seemed to have some consciousness that allowed them to cooperate with the dead auras here to be able to completely control all the corpses. Move. Qingming turned his head, glancing at Hai. Hai followed that command, leaped up, and landed next to another elder. Two wooden coffins automatically flew up by some unknown forces. The white dead aura covered everywhere. The two coffins then descended in front of Shi Yin. The hierarch of the corpse's god sect, Qingming, stretched out his left hand, pointing at the two wooden coffins, then shouted with a specific tone, Go out. Boom. The two lids of the coffins shot up, two sky corpses, one male, one female, whom Shi Yin had seen at the burial area number 93, sat up. Their eyes were emotionless. Their bodies were rigid and cold, which looked like a puppet being manipulated by someone. Shi Yin slightly squinted. Is it true that you have seen these two sky corpses? Qingming asked feebly. Shi Yin nodded and replied, That's true. But these two sky corpses seem to be oppressed by some forces. The aura inside their bodies is not working. They should have definitely been sealed. Currently, they are only puppets in your hands, and totally let you control them without having the slightest intentions of resistance. This little rascal has exceptional eyes. Qingming faintly laughed. His laughter was similar to the cry of a ferocious ghost, which was extremely unpleasant to one's ears. Together with the laughter that could freeze other people, the green pupils of the hierarch of the corpse's god sect Qingmin were getting darker and darker. Many green flames, which were as big as his fingertips, suddenly shot out from his eyes. The green flame radiated a kind of aura that scared people out of their wits, slowly flying toward the two sky corpses. The superb Adjoin corpse's flame. Right at this time, the ice-cold flame instantly sent out a message. This is one of the heaven flames, rank the 9th. As soon as this corpse flame touches a living creature, the blood cells inside the body will become anomalous. It then becomes a servant corpse, which is controlled by the superb Adjoin corpse's flame. Shi Yin was shaken, moving backward 3 steps while quietly activated all kinds of defensive forces inside his body to guard against the possibility in which the hierarch of the corpse's god sect would use the superb Adjoin corpse's flame to attack him. The green eyes of Qingming lit up strangely as if they could see through Shi Yan's precaution. Many feeble flames, which were controlled by his hands, slowly flew out and disappeared inside the two sky corpses that were sitting neatly straight up. As soon as the superb Adjoin corpse's flame had gotten into the two sky corpses, the two of them, one male and one female, also slowly recovered a little bit of aura. The oppressive forces inside of their bodies had melted like the snow in summer. Their rigid bodies became more flexible. Little rascal, is the flame inside your body one of the heaven flames? Qingming didn't look at the two sky corpses. Instead, he paid attention to Shi Yan's body. Among the scorching flames, the sun god of Tang Yuannan belongs to the sun's heat. So what does your heaven flame belong to? I know you have the superb Adjoin corpse's flame. Shi Yin frowned, quietly communicated with the tree people of Tian Mo's group, informing them the danger of the superb Adjoin corpse's flame. After that, he spoke up with a low voice. You are the hierarch of the corpse's god sect, possess the superb Adjoin corpse's flame, master of several secret corpse control techniques of the corpse's god sect. It seems that you have underrated your real cultivation ability. That's totally true. Qingming wasn't humble at all and revealed a devilish smile. Although the flame inside your body is indeed a little outstanding, its opposing ability is probably as strong as my superb Adjoin corpse's flame. Regretfully, your cultivation base is too low, impossible to truly control it. Therefore, I can easily dominate you. Do you believe it or not?
Yes.
Yin nodded, then said with a mocking tone, But you are not able to do it? Unable to do it? The green flame inside Qingming's eyes flickered a little bit. The dense, icy aura emitted from the pores on his body. At the same time, the three people of Tian Mo's group also realized that the icy aura started to approach them. More than tens of thousands of soul auras from the three of them flowed out like endless tides, besieging the disciples and the hierarch of the corpse's god sect. Choices of, master of, having mastered, mastering, but cannot be left alone as master. Chapter 304. The King Corpse Made a Roar. Chapter 304. The King Corpse Made a Roar. All of the white dead auras in the cellar were beaten earth-shakenly, which was like a tornado blasting everywhere. Sharp saber winds ear-splittingly shrieked, leaving many traces on the walls. Under the dim lights of the oil lamps, on the walls of the cellar emerged countless scratches that were extremely deep, which looked like they were being slashed by a sharp weapon. Numerous interlacing scratches were heavily carved deep into the stone walls. Peculiar lights zoomed over out of nowhere, approaching and raiding on the cellar. The white aura abruptly engulfed the flock of the corpse's god sect's elders, creating a very long aura wall wrapping around them. More than tens of thousands of visible transparent soul forces, which were like the starlight coming from the ether and densely shining on the earth, were violently attacking every corner of the cellar. The three people of Tian Mo's group shut their eyes half-closed. Although they were not moving, their bodies were the gathering place of the starlight. Each beam of the spectacular starlight entangled everyone in the cellar. Even Yin was not an exception. Hundreds of flows of starlight pierced into his sea of consciousness. Those were the soul starlight of Tian Mo's group, which was like endlessly long as well as extremely tenacious fibers. That soul starlight made it impossible for him to use his sea of consciousness, nor the five devils, nor his host soul. The three people of Tian Mo's group obviously didn't target him. However, the oppression that he was suffering was not just a joke. The green pupils inside the eyes of the corpse's god sect's hierarch were full of the starlight fibers. The three people of Tian Mo's group was controlling him. Through the unknown marvelous secret techniques, most of the starlight fibers had penetrated into Qingming's body, entered his head, and tied up his host soul and his sea of consciousness. The host soul and the sea of consciousness were the foundations of a warrior, an essential place to control the superb Adjoin corpse's flame. So, when the host soul and the sea of consciousness were limited, Qingming wasn't able to release the consciousness, which obviously prevented him from controlling the superb Adjoin corpse's flame and thus, from intimidating Yin. The icy aura was extremely heavy. The hierarch of the corpse's god sect Qingming was putting all of his powers to break those soul fibers. The three people of Tian Mo kept smiling faintly, uniting to increase the oppressive soul forces, making extreme use of all kinds of the demonic sound clans Upanishads. As being attacked by their souls, Qingming had to struggle very hard as the light in his green eyes gradually became gloomier. Hai, with a somber face, was sitting straight on a wooden coffin in silence. His eyes were overwhelmed with fear while his body trembled. He had already realized the true cultivation base of the three people of Tian Mo's group. Those three God Realm warriors were using their powerful souls to oppress others, which led to the appearance of countless swirls in the cellar. Anyone who stood close to this place would not be able to escape from the soul attraction forces of the three people of Tian Mo's group. If any intentions of resistance appeared in their heads, they would have to suffer the three people's tide of souls. The demonic Sound clan profoundly understood the soul attack. This understanding was far beyond that of the human warriors. Currently, the three of them united, releasing different kinds of miraculous souls that prevented the hierarch of the corpse's god sect to release the heaven flame. As the hierarch had no more strength to protest, he couldn't do anything else except for miserably sustaining. In a soul-attacking fight, although they were at the same god realm, Tian Mo alone was enough to dominate him, let alone the three of them uniting with each other. All right, Yin swung his hand and said, I think that Hierarch Qingming shouldn't be overconfident like you were. Don't assume that your abilities alone can turn us into corpses. In fact, Yin had quietly noticed earlier. When the Yin aura concentrated on Qingming's body, he had realized Qingming's wicked intention. The superb Adjoin corpse's flame was hard to deal with. Once this corpse flame flew out of Qingming's body, it would cover the entire cellar, and thus the three people of Tian Mo's group would have been unable to react. Although his 10,000-year earth flame was dangerous, exactly as what Qingming had said, his cultivation base was not high enough to control it. If they were in a real battle, before the 10,000-year earth flame had come close to Qingming, it would have been wrapped up by the superb Adjoin corpse's flame. Hence, he would have become a corpse of Qingming and been enslaved by that corpse flame for his entire life. Qingming had had this intention indeed. He wanted to enslave not only him, but also the three people of Tian Mo's group. That pompous idea had appeared in his head as he had assumed that the power of the superb Adjoin corpse's flame was enough to oppress those three people. Having seen through Qingming's evil intention, Yin hadn't gone easy on him anymore. He immediately commanded the three people of Tian Mo's group to use the most powerful soul oppressive forces to hinder him from using the superb Adjoin corpse's flame. The three people of Tian Mo's group slowly retrieved more than tens of thousands of flows of soul auras. Countless lights in the cellar started to dim and fade away, and then turned into billions of light dots, going back into the bodies of the three people of Tian Mo's group, which looked like numerous birds flying back to their nests. There was nothing left in the cellar which had been overwhelmed with murderous aura earlier. The scene was restoring its original peace. All of the elders of the corpse's god sect were wearing grave faces. Their eyes were full of fear and resentment. They didn't dare to act recklessly, though. Qingming's green eyes lit up some green lights. He glanced at Yin and the three people of Tian Mo's group, but didn't say a word. Qingming didn't continue taking actions. I know because you have realized that the forces inside our bodies were not as mighty as yours, you have arrogantly assumed that relying on your heaven flame alone could have had oppressed the three of us. Tian Mo coldly smiled and said disrespectfully, the demonic Sound clan's body structure is not the same as yours. Thus, in the same realm, the demonic Sound clan's body cannot be as mighty as the humans. The god power in our bodies isn't as strong as you neither. After pausing for a short while, Tian Mo frigidly continued, however, this doesn't mean that the demonic Sound clan's warriors are not as strong as you at the same level. Demonic Sound clan? Pagans? Qingming was frightened. He said, turns out you are the pagans? Kaba said, what about pagans? In the ancient times, humankind wasn't the original owner of this continent. Humankind was only one race on this continent, whose power wasn't as strong as those of the other races. If it wasn't because humankind had wicked intentions, took use of the conflicts among the other races to stimulate the war, this continent could have still belonged to our pagan race. Qingming's eyes became serious, scanning all over Kaaba. He then faintly smiled and asked, do you assume that this all that I have? Rome. An earth-shaking roar with full of brutal auras reverberated from inside the earth. Earth-destroyable vibrations were widespread while a flow of tremendous auras covered the entire place at the same time. Suddenly, all of the wooden coffins shook constantly. In this devilish atmosphere, the rattle sounds coming out from inside the coffins had proved that the corpses in those coffins were all active. The faces of Yin Hai's group displayed a great happiness. They couldn't help but shout out loud, "Hierarch, you have brought it here?" Qingming arrogantly nodded and confidently said, "Maybe my strength alone is not the opponent of the three of you, but together with that old guy underneath the earth, I am afraid that you can't get out of here in one piece." Shi Yan's face changed. He had known that there was a creature hiding inside the earth. It was the 1,000-year king corpse of the Corpse's God sect. The king corpse was the actual mighty fighting machine of the Corpse's God sect. All the information related to the king corpse had been spread out in the endless sea. Any of the high-class warriors who used to fight with the king corpse had confirmed that it was very mighty. The king corpse could be compared with the God Realm warrior. Its real ability was even much stronger than that of a God Realm warrior. The three people of Tian Mo's group quietly chucked their tongues while their eyebrows slammed together. They were able to sense a violent force through their souls. However, although that king corpse had still been hiding inside the earth for the whole time, they hadn't been able to figure it out, which frightened them very much. They felt freezing because of the king corpse's strength. After the king corpse had just made a roar from inside the earth, the entire Sun Island was violently shaken already. The God Realm warriors on the island were startled and then released their soul consciousness altogether towards the corpse's God sect's place. Even the sun god Tang Yuannan's face also changed in fear. As soon as he had released his soul consciousness, the three people of Li Fu's group arrived, quickly approached and clearly reported the situation. "Shi Yan has come to the corpse's God sect's place." Tang Yuannan was startled. Tens of thousands of earth lights emitted from his body and then disappeared into the void. The Yin auras were overwhelming in the cellar. A blazing red dot of light emerged, gradually enlarged and became a dazzling Sunday. Space was distorted. The sun god Tang Yuannan appeared. The light dimmed as the glowing red face of Tang Yuannan emerged. He was frowning, looking at the hierarch of the corpse's god sect, then said, "Qingming Ji, has this place ever done something wrong with you? Why do you want to use the king corpse to destroy my island?" The terrifying light in Qingming's eyes lessened a little bit. He took a deep breath and said, "Just mistaken." After a flow of consciousness shot out into underneath the earth from Qingming's head, the horrendous aura then slowly receded. The ancient corpses of Qingming now stopped roaring and quietly stayed inside the earth. Tang Yuannan stood between Qingming and Shi Yan. His back was facing Shi Yan. Although he didn't turn his head around, Shi Yan's body still trembled. He felt that his heart was beating very frantically. His body gradually brightened up like a shooting star in the sky, which made him feel very strange. Tang Yuannan still didn't turn around, but his body had gotten hotter little by little and eventually glowed. Each of the suns gave off a radiant circle of light in the cellar, flooding this cellar with a sea of light. The temperature was gradually increasing. Chapter 305, Joint Owner. Chapter 305, Joint Owner. Shi Yan and Tang Yuannan were 5 meters away from each other. Their bodies had peculiar transformations simultaneously. At this time, there quietly appeared a fanciful connection between them that affected both of their martial spirits. It was the first time they had met. Although they had never known each other's appearance before, the martial spirits inside their bodies had triggered a resonance. Shi Yan slightly shivered, holding his chest, clenching his teeth and cursing under his breath. He didn't know anything regarding the star martial spirits. He basically couldn't control these forces. Shi Yan's heart was beating frantically, deranging all forces inside his body, making them fight against themselves and causing him a lot of pain. Tang Yuannan didn't seem to have any abnormal changes. His brightening gesture showed that he was very comfortable. His body was radiating many circles of light, one by one. These circles of light moved and covered Shi Yan entirely as he pleased. "Damn it!" Shi Yan cursed with a ferocious face. Countless negative feelings inside his meridians erupted violently like a volcano. In an instant, his strong body gradually withered while an extremely devilish force burst out from his meridians. This evil force had a tremendous and mighty momentum, impetuously oppressed the other spiritual forces that were perversely stirring his heart and helped it back to its normal state. After gasping a few breaths and taking 3 steps backward, his radiating body like a cold star gradually recovered. "Oh," Tang Yuannan slightly uttered, finally turned his head around to look at Shi Yin with an astonished face. His eyes were like the 2 small suns projecting dazzling lights that could frighten other people. Under these powerful eyes, Shi Yin felt painful and didn't dare to look straight to them. Only until the ice-cold flame released the icy power that seeped into his body and slowly gathered in his eyes, he started to adapt with the sunlight from Tang Yuannan's eyes. He then calmly looked at Tang Yuannan and said, "Great Hierarch Tang, we are all from the same sect. No need to be so formal." Tang Yuannan revealed a smile. The sunlight on his body had faded away little by little. He no longer had the intention of testing Shi Yan's ability. Shi Yin relaxed his whole body. The star martial spirits also became restful as if it didn't see the opponent anymore. Hence, it lost interest and stopped provoking and rebelling. Same sect? Shi Yin confusedly smiled, slightly shook his head without daring to say anything more. The hierarch of the corpse's god sect, Qingming frigidly and suspiciously looked at Tang Yuannan and then swept his doubtful eyes over Shi Yin. He revealed a cold smile after a while. "I didn't expect that this little rascal had some relations with the 3 gods sect. No wonder why Tang Ji has come here so fast. It seems that you have come here to protect this child." "Protect this child?" Tang Yuannan seemed to find it very funny, turned around looking at Qingming, then burst into laughter. "Even if I didn't get involved, what could have you done to him?" "Qingming Ji, don't blame me for not warning you. Shi Yan's forces are much stronger than what you see now. You just think about it yourself." Qingming eyes brightened up. He started to think about the forces behind Shi Yin. "I've come here to tell Qingming Ji that you shouldn't recklessly use the king corpse." Tang Yuannan's face was very calm, as if he was solving an everyday matter. "My island is not able to stand too much of the pressures. I hope Qingming Ji have some regards for me." Tang Yuannan turned his head around looking at Shi Yin, revealed a meaningful smile. "Little rascal, can you behave a little bit? Although you have come to the Sun Island for only 2 hours, 5 Earth Realm warriors have already been killed. 3 forces denounced you to me, and now you are fighting with the hierarch Qingming. What do you want to do after all?" Shi Yin was surprised. "Before the meeting starts, you shouldn't cause any more troubles." Tang Yuannan reluctantly released a long sigh and said, "Help me save face, okay? Regarding the situation related to the sevenfold underworld, have you found out anything?" Shi Yin was startled for a while before asking with his knitting eyebrows. "Let's wait until the meeting to talk about it. It is too soon to tell now." Tang Yuannan's face was complicated. He slightly nodded and continued, "When the meeting is over, you will go with me to the Moon Island. I have some things to tell you in private." Shi Yin nodded, implicating that he already understood. "If there are any problems, tell me." "Understand?" Tang Yuannan hesitated a little bit, then added while knitting his eyebrows, "Actually, you are the joint owner of this island." The faces of Inhai and the flock of elders of the corpse's god sect instantly changed and displayed fear after having listened to what Tang Yuannan had just said. Qingming's eyes also became very strange. "Joint owner." Shi Yin also found it funny. "All right, I will be more well-behaved and less troublesome. However, you make me feel bad. I won't care about this joint owner. Anyway, a part of my blood is the Yang family's." "It is good that you understand." Tang Yuannan nodded and said nothing more. A beam of light flashed up, and he disappeared into the void again. "How is the relation between you and the 3 God sect?" Qingming took a deep breath. "As what I have known, the Yang family and the 3 God sect have always been against each other for hundreds of years. Although the 2 sides haven't gotten into any big wars for the last 10 years, I have never heard that the Yang family and the 3 God sect had any sort of connections." Shi Yin coldly harumphed and didn't even bother to reply. From deep inside his heart, he knew that Tang Yuannan wasn't scared of Qingming. That was why Tang Yuannan said that he was a joint owner of the Sun Island. In fact, Tang Yuannan just wanted to entice him. Through the corpse's god sect, Tang Yuannan perhaps wanted to spread out the news regarding the relationship between him and the 3 God sect, Let all of the warriors in the Endless Sea know that besides being a member of the Yang family, Shi Yin was also the spirit inheritor of the Three Gods sect. He had the Star Martial spirit, so he would possibly step on the Star Island in the future. Thus, becoming the spirit inheritor of the Three Gods sect was also obvious, especially after the Yang family had hidden in the demon area. Their power had dramatically declined, and young Tian Emperor had not been in a good situation. Shi Yin also understood that the reason why Tang Yuannan had proactively displayed his good intentions was that the friendly attitude with the demonic Sound Clan and the Wings race was also an important factor besides the fact that he possessed the Star Martial spirits. The unity of the demonic Sound Clan and the Wing race wasn't less powerful than that of any other forces. The fact that Tang Yuannan enticed Shi Yin also meant enticing the demonic Sound Clan and the Wings race. This guy's plan was really good. The Corpse's God sect doesn't have any hostility with you either. A few moments later, Qingming suddenly admitted his mistake. If you are interested in these two sky corpses, I can give them to you, considering them my admission of the mistake for the reckless actions at the corpse burial plot number 93. The reason I considered you the corpse refining object that year is because of the trade with the Yin-Yang Wonderland. Other than that, we don't have any direct relations with them. What do you think? Yin Hai's group was startled with their eyes and mouths wide opened. Two sky corpses and the resentment between the corpse's god sect, and you will be cleared. How about it? Qingming said with a low voice. Hierarch. Yin Hai was panicked. These two sky corpses belonged to him. Shut up, Qingming shouted out loud. Yin Hai mused immediately. Two sky corpses. Shi Yin frowned, contemplated for a while before saying, it's okay that way. But you have to remove all the formation techniques on those sky corpses, as well as wiping out the corpse souls that Yin Hai has been retaining. Of course, Qingming instantly agreed. Cleaning up the things in these two sky corpses requires some time. 3 days, 3 days later, I will send Yin Hai to bring you these two sky corpses. How is it? Let's do it that way. Shi Yin dragged a half-smile out of the corner of his mouth, clasped his hands conducting the etiquette with Qingming. Predecessor Qingming is very generous indeed. I have learned a lot for today. See you in the meeting. After finishing, Shi Yin turned around and left. The 3 people of Tian Mo's group also followed him, quickly left without leaving any traces. Hierarch. Yin Hai resentfully bowed his head. Why? You don't need to know. The green eyes of Qingming suddenly flared up peculiar dots of light that formed a miraculous formation. Inside this small formation, a feeble green flame was flickering and then gradually transformed into a small dark blue face. There is still a heaven flame in his body. A strange consciousness appeared in Qingming's head, zooming over his sea of consciousness. There is something exceptional on his body. Otherwise, the other 2 heaven flames would not have submitted. We temporarily shouldn't confront this guy. Let's carefully observe him for a while first. Qingming quietly nodded. The green hue in his eyes was gradually dimmer. His pupils regained their brown color as usual. Master, Tianmo slightly turned around, pointed towards above the head and said with a small voice, the God Realm warrior souls are still watching. Shi Yin raised his head looking up towards the sky, then said with a faint smile, no need to care about them. They are very arrogant. Their subordinates were many. They will not show themselves just because of an Earth Realm warrior like me. I think that they will care about me after the meeting is over. Right now, I am not qualified yet. So, are we going back now? Tianmo continued asking. Shi Yin was bewildered, thought for a while and then said, the 3 of you go back first. I am going to the Sacred Light Mountain. If I go back now, there would probably be some people coming to find me. That's annoying. And if you guys go with me, it will attract other people's eyes. Ha ha ha. I also want to relax a little bit. Will it be dangerous? Kaba worriedly asked. Or Tianmo will go with you. The 2 of us will go back first. No need. Shi Yin shook his head. You guys go back all together. Some warriors on this island are still watching you. In their eyes, I am just a messenger. You have overrated their respect towards me. I know you can always use your souls to transmit messages to me. Thus, if something happens, I can also send a message to you. Although this island is not small, it is not big for you either. It won't take too long for you to fly to me with all of your strength. All right, we'll go first then. Tian nodded, bent down to conduct his etiquette before quickly disappearing. Yin went straight to the sacred light mountain. He sometimes met some people on the way. A bunch of young warriors with tidy clothes ahead were gathering into groups of 3 or 5, discussing and smiling continually. They didn't seem to be so worried about the demon's dwellers' invasion. On the contrary, it appeared that they were enjoying the fun and the pleasant atmosphere here. Yin had already killed 5 Earth Realm warriors just right after having come here. However, very few people had seen it. Therefore, most of the warriors from different forces everywhere didn't recognize him while he was on his way. They kept laughing and talking with each other, didn't lay their eyes on him. The Sacred Light Mountain was the only mountain on the island. It was tens of thousands of zhang tall, like a sky-supporting pillar piercing up through the sky. The great Sun Holy Palace of the Sun Island was up on the peak of the Sacred Light Mountain, staying hidden inside the hovering misty clouds, being overwhelmed with the blazing summer sunlight day by day. It was said that this great Sun Holy Palace had been made of numerous rare mineral stones that could absorb the sunlight and had countless miraculous effects. There were many hot springs at the Sacred Light Mountain. It was said that those hot springs had varieties of mystical effectiveness which helped women's skin whitening, shiny, and smooth, or helped men be energetic. Soaking in this calm, warm water would make people feel refreshed and revitalized again. At the foot of the Sacred Light Mountain, besides the hot springs, there were also some trading fairs established for exchanging materials, many taverns supplying wine and girls, or typical cultivating rooms exclusively reserved for the warriors. That was why the foot of the Sacred Light Mountain could attract many outstanding youths from everywhere. Many young warriors had followed their great masters here for many different purposes. They gathered in groups, being excited and attached, hoping that they could be lucky enough to find their dream treasures. At a sky-blue bathing place, the warm steam hovered about and covered the hot spring. The bathing area was divided into different separating areas by jasper walls. In the middle of the hot spring area, there was a small ellipse-shaped lake with the size that was as big as a football field. Quite a significant number of warriors were bathing and resting in the lake. A young girl in a thin blouse sunk her slender body into the water of the spring. Because of the rising steam which almost covered the entire water surface, her figure became ambiguous. Even her face couldn't be seen clearly, let alone her prominent body that was hidden under the hot water of the hot spring. Many pavilions were surrounding the bathing place. Some warriors were leaning against the handrails inside those pavilions, attentively looking at the hot spring. Although they couldn't see anything clearly, a bunch of them all wore an excited and eager face. Yin walked over to the bathing place and took a quick glance at it. It was indeed impossible to see girls' appearances under this dense, steaming water, let alone to see through the water to watch their mesmerizing bodies. As he emotionlessly walked into one of the pavilions, he heard the sound of a buoyant discussion of some warriors, as well as the scent of wine. He immediately realized that this was the only tavern of this bathing place, which specialized in supplying delicious dishes. While beaming out a faint smile, Yin felt that his body had loosened a bit and was now relaxed. He stared at that tavern for a while before walking inside. "Miss Gu, try this. This is the crescent moon crab meat which can only be found in the Moon Island of the Three Gods sect. The meat is soft with natural flavor. It is very delicious. Miss Chu, try a little bit of this flowing clouds flying streams. It has been said that this wine has been made of the sacred spring inside the Sacred Light Mountain. This sacred wine can mesmerize everyone." 5 or 6 young, good-looking men in tidy and beautiful clothes were smilingly blandishing the 2 women sitting at the table next to the window. The women over there were Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing. Although Gu Linglong still wore the strange mask, with the exceptional aura spreading out from her body, as well as her appearance which everyone here had all known of, many men had gone mad with her beauty. As soon as Yin had stepped in and even before he could find a seat for himself, he heard those voices coming up and couldn't help but feel ridiculous. He slightly shook his head without saying anything. He found a table near a window and then deliberately looked towards the hot spring where the steam was rising hazily, trying to find a charming figure that was able to attract him. Chapter 306. Good Fortune Came Unexpectedly. Chapter 306. Good Fortune Came Unexpectedly. In front of the window, Yan's head leaned against the window frame to observe the blue lake down there. In the immense steam, beautiful figures ambiguously faded in and out. Many good-looking young warriors with magnificent clothes were also sitting next to the windows like him, talking and laughing, sometimes whistling. They were all very relaxing. Inside the pavilion, numerous guards of the three gods sect came and went, bringing many free fruits to the tables that had people sitting. The Sun Island had seldom been open to welcome the outside world. The warriors, who were present on the Sun Island this time, all followed their great masters of several families or famous sects who were guests of the three gods sect. Therefore, the bathing places at the foot of the sacred Light Mountain were opened for free. Even some taverns offered free fruits and food to their guests. Of course, the three gods sect would not provide the precious and rare food for free. People should have enough money to pay for it. Yan scanned over the precious food menu of the three gods sect but didn't feel very interested in having them. As he felt that the free fruits were enough, he didn't call the guards to order more food after taking a seat. An undetected soul message was transmitted into his head. The messenger was Tian. Master, there are indeed many people that have come to greet and talk. Among them are the warriors of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, the Dongfang family, and the Yin Yang Wonderland, as well as the people that you have taught them a lesson earlier. Do you want to see them? Although the soul message of Tianmo was sent from 10 miles far away, it remained very clear and didn't fade away in Yan's head as if Tianmo was just standing next to him. After thinking for a while, Yan responded to Tianmo's soul in his head. Ignore them. We don't receive anyone.
Yes.
Tianmo quietly retrieved his soul message first. Yan regained his normal state with his lucid eyes. Yan exhaled slightly in shock, knitted his eyebrows, looked at the person sitting in front of him, then asked with a low voice, "Who are you?" As he wasn't as good at using the soul as Tianmo, he had to concentrate all of his spirits to communicate with Tianmo, and thus, he couldn't notice any changes happening nearby. After having exchanged messages with Tianmo, he was immediately beware of a young man sitting right next to him. This person wore a 5-colored tunic. His coat was also colorful with the embroidery of all kinds of exotic flowers and birds. Although this person's clothes were weird, he was extremely good-looking. His face was elegantly jade-like, and his eyes were like bright stars. His appearance was even more beautiful than that of a beautiful girl. Under Yan's scrutinized look, this person relaxingly laughed while one of his legs put on one of the tables beside them. He deliberately picked up a cluster of grapes and said with a smile, "I am also traveling to the Endless Sea for sightseeing. My name is Yi Zhangfeng. I used to be a member of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland but have gotten expelled. Now, I don't belong to any forces." While smiling, he raised his left hand, which was even more delicate than that of a pretty girl, to call a guard who was approaching toward them and said, "Bring 4 sun flame bottles here. This kind of wine is unforgettable." Cough. A heavy bag of crystal coins was launched from his palm and exactly fell into the hand of the three gods sect's guard. "We both drink and watch beautiful girls at the same time. Ha ha ha, I am very interested in beautiful girls, so we can comfortably discuss with each other." This person didn't show any signs of formalities whatsoever. He took an apple and aggressively bit it, then smilingly pointed towards Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing, lowered his voice and said, "Those 2 girls over there are real precious food. One of them is the daughter of the Gu family. The other is the holy maiden of the Heaven Lake Divine Land. They not only have exceptional appearances, but are also the outstanding warriors on the power rankings. Especially the holy maiden of the Heaven Lake Divine Land. The face behind that mask will surely make people long for it day and night." Yi Zhangfeng's face seemed to be very excited. He flicked his tongue with half-closed eyes and revealed a big grin. While he was talking, A guard of the Three Gods sect had already brought 4 bottles of the Sun Flame and some snacks. He lazily stood up, grabbed a bottle of the Sun Flame, threw his head back, guzzling a few gulps of wine, then wiped his mouth and complimented, "This wine is amazing." Shi Yin leaned his back against the chair, slightly squinted, coldly looking at Yi Zhangfeng without saying anything. "Do you want to try a sip?" Yi Zhangfeng spoke up, put a bottle of the Sun Flame in front of Shi Yin, and seriously said, "Only the Three Gods sect has this wine. It has been made by a sun god. You will feel that your tummy is in flames after drinking it. It is both subtle and hot, absolutely a good wine for a man." Shi Yin contemplated and didn't say a word. He took the Sun Flame bottle, held his face up, drinking almost half of the bottle in one breath. He then frigidly looked at Yi Zhangfeng and said, "Spit it out. Why are you looking for me?" Yi Zhangfeng's face stiffened. He rubbed his cheek and said with an embarrassed smile, "You realized it? You have the Purgatory True Flame, which ranks number 4 on the Heaven Flames list. Moreover, you have also fused with that Purgatory True Flame. Your understanding of the Heaven Flames is not less than that of the Corpses God sect's hierarch Qing Ming. You also know about his superb Adjoin Corpses Flame while you were just in the Earth Realm. You have probably met Qing Ming earlier." Shi Yin coldly said, "Heaven Flames can sense and detect each other. As you are sitting in front of me, I can apparently sense the Heaven Flames aura on your body. I just want to know what you are going to do after all." Heaven Flames can absorb and support each other. If one Heaven Flame consumes another one, it will bring that Heaven Flame itself and its owner a marvelous benefit. A half hour ago, Shi Yin and the Corpses God sect had confronted. He also knew that Qing Ming had the greed for his Heaven Flame. If the 3 people of Tian Mo's group hadn't been there, or Tang Yuanan hadn't appeared to warn Qing Ming would have recklessly found all the ways to absorb his Heaven Flame. If Qing Ming had absorbed the 10,000-year Earth Flame, his God realm would have entered a new level, and his strength then could frighten everyone. As Yi Zhangfeng possessed the Purgatory True Flame, Shi Yin had to be very careful with him. The Purgatory True Flame originates from the Purgatory, which is the origination of the Purgatory Flame that ranks number 4 among the Heaven Flames. The Purgatory True Flame can melt down all mineral metals. Therefore, the Purgatory True Flame can not only prevent the enemies, but also refine medicinal pills and secret treasures. The person who possesses the Purgatory True Flame can also become an alchemist or a blacksmith. In terms of the achievements in these 2 fields, ordinary people are completely on the losing ground. The ice-cold flame sent out a message from the blood vein ring to help Shi Yin understand a little bit more about the attributes of the Purgatory True Flame. "Don't misunderstand." Yi Zhangfeng laughed while raising his hand, implicating that he didn't have any wicked intentions. As he didn't see Shi Yin having any abnormal actions, he then regained his previous deliberate manner, laughed and said, "I meet you here unexpectedly. I have come to this tavern to drink and then realized that you have the Heaven Flames aura. Hence, I walked over here." "That's good." Shi Yin nodded with calm eyes. He sedately ate fruits and drank the good wine of Yi Zhangfeng, relaxingly watching the hot water lake, ignoring the other person. In fact, Yi Zhangfeng wanted to say something but then stopped. Shi Yin didn't look at him, pretending not to hear it, and continued watching the lake down there. "I want to make a trade with you. I don't know what kind of your Heaven Flame is, but I think that you can help me successfully refine some sacred-level secret treasures." Yi Zhangfeng said with flaming bad ambitions and burning eyes, "Although I have the Purgatory True Flame, my cultivation base is too low, which prevents me from being able to make use all of the Purgatory True Flame's forces. Meanwhile, refining sacred-level secret treasures requires a persistent heating flame for a long time. That is why I couldn't do it." Not interested, Shi Yin didn't turn his head and directly refused him. "You are not taking this chance to deprive him of the Purgatory True Flame that resides in his body?" The ice-cold flame sent out a message. "Although this little rascal's cultivation base is the same as yours, killing him is not a difficult task with your true ability. After he is dead, you can absorb the Purgatory True Flame. What do you think? He only has the Earth Realm cultivation base, but he could fuse it with his own body. Do you think that he is that easy to deal with?" Shi Yin beamed out a faint smile. As what I have known, it seems that only the true God warriors are qualified enough to fuse the heaven flames with their bodies. When I've met Qing Ming, I could feel that his fusion was even less than that of this little rascal. I don't think we should recklessly do anything. Makes sense. This person is indeed a little peculiar. The ice-cold flame agreed with Shi Yin. Honestly, I am more interested in Qing Ming's heaven flame. Ah, aren't you crazy? Qing Ming is a God realm warrior. His superb Adjoin corpse's flame is very anomalous. Although his fusion with the superb Adjoin corpse's flame is not as good as that of this little rascal, his realm is very high, which allows him to make great use of the superb Adjoin corpse's flame's powers. Have you gone mad? Probably. If I am interested in Qing Ming, so are other people. We will see how the situation goes and find the right time to take action. When the ice-cold flame and he were secretly communicating, Yi Zhangfeng worriedly rubbed his face. After a long while, Yi Zhangfeng suddenly clenched his teeth and hatefully said, "If you can help me, the sacred level secret treasure will be yours if it can be successfully refined." Shi Yan's eyes brightened up. He turned his head around looking at Yi Zhangfeng as if he was a stupid person. "Are you insane?" "Going to be?" Yi Zhangfeng laughed strangely. "You also know the value of a sacred level secret treasure. In the endless sea, each sacred level secret treasure is the thing to guard the sect. I am willing to give it to you because I want you to help me." "So, what will you get after that?" Shi Yin was startled, unable to understand. "My cultivating technique is a little bit specific. Breaking through the realm is carried out through the secret treasure refinement. If I am successful in refining a sacred level secret treasure, I can break through directly to the nirvana realm from the earth realm, even possibly enter the spirit realm." Yi Zhangfeng thought a little bit before speaking with his heating eyes. Shi Yan's body was agitated. He said with a low voice, "It seems you also get many good things. If I don't have anything in return, why I have to give you that much?" Yi Zhangfeng forced a smile and continued, "If I want to refine a secret treasure, I have to find a person with the heaven flame and ask for his help. This thing. Although I know that the corpse's god sect's hierarch Qing Ming has the heaven flame, I don't dare to cooperate with him. As you have known, the heaven flames can devour each other. My cultivation base is much less than his, and I have also lost the support from the spirit treasure wonderland. Hence, I don't dare to." Shi Yin kept silent, knitted his eyebrows, carefully considering the pros and cons. He couldn't help but have a feeling that a cake had just fallen from the heaven. After using his heaven flame to help that guy, he could obtain a sacred level secret treasure. Wasn't it similar to find a fortune out of expectation? "Little rascal, are you sure about that?" After contemplating for a while, Shi Yin suddenly remembered this matter, then asked, "Don't tell me that you are not sure and just want to take me as an experimental test subject, and then everything comes to nothing at the end. I warn you, I am very busy. I don't have too much time to make a joke with you." "No worries, I have tried it many times before." Yi Zhangfeng arrogantly laughed and confidently said, "If you agree to help me, I assure that you will have a sacred level secret treasure. Believe me." "All right, I trust you this time." Shi Yin dragged a half smile out of the corner of his mouth, then said, "I agree. That's good. Let's talk about details." Yi Zhangfeng took one step forward and lowered his voice. "I have prepared enough materials, just lack one typical material, which is the particular profound level secret treasure. It is." Clacking. Right at this time, many hasty footsteps reverberated from the stairs. A gentle-to-bone voice came up. "Yi Zhangfeng, come out." Yi Zhangfeng was dumbstruck with an embarrassed face, quickly turned his back toward the door, pretending like he was attentively watching the hot water lake. His outstandingly handsome face was suddenly distorted. His bones changed, his facial skin was pulled together. Just in 3 breaths, his face had changed from the appearance of a white-faced young man to a dry yellow face with gloomy eyes. Even the angel-like attraction had also disappeared. Wandering in this world, one always needs some self-protection tricks. Hee. Yi Zhangfeng relaxed his body, swinging his legs, and continued drinking wine without being worried at all. Chapter 307. Dare to come here and play with me in the water? Chapter 307. Dare to come here and play with me in the water? Not long after that, a beautiful girl with a petite body and blue clothes stepped up from the stairs. Although this girl had a pretty yet dainty body, her full breasts were extraordinary big, stodgy, and dominantly heaved. They were quite bigger than those of other beautiful girls that Yin had ever met. Her skin was of a jade-like white hue and as splendid as lights radiating from a gem. As soon as this girl stepped up, all the men in the tavern were startled, watching her without blinking. She had a pure and perfectly pretty face. Her moves were extremely adorable and agile. Together with her stodgy, firm breasts, everything had made a blow-minding appeal of this girl. Even Yan's eyes brightened, staring at that girl, secretly complimenting her. Yi Zhangfeng turned his back to that girl and winked at Yin, implicating that he shouldn't draw that girl's attention, which might bring him some troubles. Yin chuckled, knitted his eyebrows, took the bottle of wine, held his head back and drank some sips. He then shook his head and said, "Such a regret?" Yi Zhangfeng was bewildered, moved closer and asked, "What regret?" "Such a delicious fresh cabbage like that is tormented by scum like you." Yin coldly harumphed, then said with a low voice, "Why is she looking for you?" "Nothing." Yi Zhangfeng forced a smile. That girl stepped into the room, tweaked her back several times. Her almond-shaped eyes on the ferocious face started to scan from the last tables to the other side without letting any warriors escape from her sight. The warriors from different seas all revealed a big smile, lifted up their heads and straightened their backs, trying to show that they were extraordinarily eminent. The girl faintly smiled with disrelish on her face. After glimpsing all the people here and being unable to find the person she wanted, she hastily turned around and left. "Little Mei, you come sit here and have some drinks with me." A guy at the second sky of the disaster realm lustfully smiled while looking at that girl, and then proactively walked closer to her. "You want to die?" Yi Zhangfeng suddenly lowered his head, slightly breathing. He reluctantly shook his head and released a sigh as if he was whining for the other's fate. Yin was astonished, but then he immediately understood why Yi Zhangfeng had sighed. That pretty girl with ample bosom gently took actions, pulling that guy, grabbing his waist and throwing him away. This disturbing disaster realm warrior flew straight out of the window. While he was still in the air, his head exploded, blood spattered everywhere. He was dead even before falling in the lake. Boom! That girl's snow-white hand was gently placed on the table. A tremendous aura massively transmitted to that table. In an instant, that wooden table broke into 4 or 5 pieces, each of which shot out like a dazzling sharp sword, dashing straight to the 3 disaster realm warriors who were lustfully smiling on their chairs. A scream like a stuck pig resounded, and then ceased instantly. The girl took out a silk handkerchief and wiped away some drops of wine on her hand. She didn't care about those 3 bodies beside her and continued to walk forward to search instead. With her ferocious eyes, she carefully looked at every single person. The whole tavern was deadly silent without any sound. The previous boisterous noise seemed to disappear. The lustful eyes now became frightened. At this time, the tavern was so quiet that even the sound of a falling needle could also be heard. All eyes were on that girl. Yin was not an exception either. For mild flows of bloody aura from the lake and the broken table flew towards Yin. Yan's spirit was very comfortable, like being fed when hungry. He had killed 5 Earth Realm warriors and obtained 5 flows of aura today. Now, he got another 4 streams of the 4 Disaster Realm warriors' aura. He was very satisfied with this achievement, and thus was more interest in crowded places. The more people they have, the easier that conflicts could happen, which benefited his miraculous martial spirits more. That girl goggled her eyes, freely going back and forth in the tavern, which was now as quiet as a mouse. Although her eyes displayed impatience, she still maintained a gentle voice. "Yi Zhangfeng, even if you are dead, you have to come out now. Master needs to see you." Yin saw Yi Zhangfeng continue eating without looking at that girl. However, his face was stiff, which didn't match with his deliberate manner. "Master has said that if you don't go back in 1 hour, he will kill your demon beast mount." That girl was both searching and gently intimidating at the same time. If you don't go back in 2 hours, Master will destroy the perishing spirit formation's mouth that you have created. And if you still don't show up, he would smash the divine incense tripod. Yi Zhangfeng was still busy with eating, while forcing a miserable smile on his face, as if someone had controlled his fate. He released a sigh and dolefully said, "Jia, give me this spiritual stone." The girl's eyes were brightened while revealing a smile. Her eyes were half-closed, forming a new moon shape, which was very adorable. "That's good. Master just wants good things for you. You should honestly tell the truth and then obediently go back. He will not make it hard on you." After speaking, the girl walked over and stood in front of Shi Yin, hauled out a triangle-shaped silverine stone and gave it to Yi Zhangfeng. After that, she pushed Yi Zhangfeng to the other seat, and then sat down on the chair that he had just left. Clatter. The bottle of wine fell on the ground. The girl eyed Shi Yin curiously and said, "This bastard Yi Zhangfeng is a troublemaker. You shouldn't get involved with him. No matter what he suggests, you better not to agree. Otherwise, the one who suffers loss is you." Shi Yan's face became peculiar. Korf, korf, korf. Yi Zhangfeng constantly coughed. His face turned red. He cruelly goggled at her and scolded, "Lin Yiqi, can you not cause me any more troubles? I am only speaking the truth." The girl lifted her face up and contemptuously said, "Shi Yin." A light shout suddenly arose from the table ahead. Gu Linglong stood up, biting her lips and clenching her teeth. Her face was full of resentment, and her eyes were flooded with hatred. It looked like she was about to risk her life. Chu Yanqing was stunned as she hadn't expected that she would see Shi Yin here. However, the hesitance appeared in her eyes, just like she was quietly considering something. She didn't stand up like Gu Linglong. It seemed she was afraid of something. Shi Yin knitted his eyebrows, looking at that direction. He then poured a cup of wine for himself, raised it towards Gu Linglong, and said with a smile, "Very glad to meet you here. I am not happy at all." Gu Linglong's face was overwhelmed with anger. "You, a dirty and scrupulous bastard like you also come to the Sun Island. Aren't you afraid that people here will devour you?" Shi Yin shrugged and said, "Isn't it that I am still fine now?" Gu Linglong gnashed her teeth and was about to say something, but then 4 Earth Realm warriors sitting beside her suddenly stood up, rushing towards Shi Yin with unfriendly manners. Those 4 were all at the first or second sky of Earth Realm with arrogant gestures and notable appearances. As they saw Gu Linglong being angry, they wanted to show off their abilities a little bit to win her heart. The guy leading wore a hat and white martial attire. Before taking actions, he gently asked Lin Yiqi, "Does this man have any relations to you?" Lin Yiqi shook her head. "I don't know him." Yi Zhangfeng faintly smiled, lazily leaned backward, didn't seem to help Shi Yin out willingly. He waved his hand and said, "If you want to fight, get a little bit further away from me. If you don't touch me, I will not get angry." Linglong, Chu Yanqing stood up eventually, staring at Gu Linglong, then said with a low voice, "Do you intend to let them die? Flies that buzz around annoys me. They deserve to die." Gu Linglong coldly replied. Reluctantly, Chu Yanqing seriously said, "Han Feng, you shouldn't make a mess here. You guys are not his opponents. Moreover, our hatred is not your business." The guy leading's face looked a little strange after hearing this. He turned his head around, glancing at Chu Yanqing, and said, "Miss Chu, you have underestimated us too much." "I don't underestimate you," Chu Yanqing continued. "You guys are not his opponents. Even if you guys attack all together, death is the only way that awaits you guys." The warriors in the tavern were all astonished after hearing this. Even Lin Yiqi was dazzled, knitted her eyebrows, pulled Yi Zhangfeng's blouse and asked, "Little Bai, is this friend of yours dangerous?" Yi Zhangfeng shook his head and said while chuckling, "I don't know." Shi Yin was drinking wine alone, didn't care about the 4 warriors who were provoking him. He only indifferently looked at Lin Yiqi and Yi Zhangfeng in front of him and then shifted his eyes toward the lake through the window. After hearing Chu Yanqing's advice, the faces of those 4 warriors, who wanted to win a beauty's heart, got darkened. They stood behind Shi Yan's back hesitantly, considering if they should hazardously take actions. Shi Yan was still acting normal, concentrating on the hot water lake, looking toward a mermaid inside the lake. At the southwest corner of the densely steamy lake, a charming figure was swimming like a mermaid. This woman was regularly coming up and down out of the water. That beautiful figure was ambiguously flashing on and off inside the steam. Other people certainly couldn't see it clearly, so they would feel so unpleasantly curious that made them want to come closer to have a better look to see how beautiful that figure was. In the turquoise water, that woman sometimes looked toward Yin and smiled as if she was proudly displaying her appealing body. Beside her, there were about 10 warriors from different forces in the endless sea. They were all passionately watching her with enjoyable eyes, but didn't dare to come closer. In the tavern, some warriors were also looking towards her with astonished eyes which glued on the girl's mesmerizing body that could drive others crazy. Many of them whistled and resented not being able to jump into the water, coming closer to admire her beauty. "Do you dare come here and play with me in the water?" Under the scrutinized looks of numerous warriors, that woman raised her snow-white arm, pointing towards Yin while provokingly smiling. "Yin, if you have the gut to come down here, I will agree to let you bathe next to me." Chapter 308, Eyes of Love. Chapter 308, Eyes of Love. "Do you dare to come down here?" In the large bathing area, many moving lights were surrounding Xiaojilan. Her mesmerizing face gradually appeared clearer. The misty steam hovered around her body like a real living creature dancing, following her gentle movements. It gave people a feeling that a long white eel was moderately and slenderly mincing around her. Standing in the lake, Xiaojilan consistently revealed a big smile on her beautiful face. In front of other people, she didn't seem to be scared nor shy. Her small jade-like finger pointed towards Yin from a distance, while her breath was provokingly rambling. Everyone clamored. No matter if it was either male or female warriors in this bathing area, or the outstanding youth surrounding, or those who recognized her or not, everyone was startled. Following the direction that Xiaojilan's jade-like finger was pointing, everyone nervously searched for the target and eventually found Yin by the window. Under countless attentive looks, Yan's face remained normal, as if he didn't know that he had become their target. He continued drinking alone without paying any attentions to Xiaojilan's words. He didn't show any abnormal changes and maintained his indifferent manner. Lin Yiqi and Yi Zhangfeng beside him were also bewildered, looking at him with strange faces. After having heard Xiaojilan's words, more than 10 young warriors in the tavern surprisingly looked at him with the eyes full of horror, admirability, envy, discontentment, suspicion, etc. While many thoughts were spinning in their heads, they were quietly speculating Yan's identity. The 4 young warriors, who had had the intention of disturbance, were in a daze behind Yin like wooden cocks, standing like a post without any reactions. Gu Linglong secretly gritted her teeth, felt angry and hateful at the same time, while quietly cursing Xiaojilan. Chu Yanqing slowly sat down, bowed her head without uttering a word. Nobody knew what she was thinking. "Is the daughter of the Chao family calling you?" Yi Zhangfeng was startled for a while, then shuddered and said with a strange face, "Brother, who are you after all?" "I know this Xiaojilan. This woman is famous for her beauty in the endless sea. Numerous people have gone mad because of her. I have never heard that she has ever laid her eyes on anyone. But you could do it, even make her take the initiative. How did you do it?" Yin shook his head with a cold face. "She is mentally ill." Lin Yiqi chuckled, constantly nodding. "She got a mental disorder indeed. She can shamelessly do something like this in front of so many people. I genuinely admired this woman." "Aren't you coming down?" Yi Zhangfeng said. "For countless people in the endless sea, that woman is the dreaming precious treasure. She has proactively been asking for you. What are you waiting for?" Numerous eyes were fixed on Yin, and everyone with different expressions seemed to wait for something to happen. Xiaojilan gently smiled like a cherry blossom budding, which was incredibly beautiful. Her curves were covered by many rays of light. Her hair was soft and shiny. Her full lips were red and appealing. She raised her voice and continued, "Yin, why are you scared of me? You are afraid that I will devour you?" In the tavern, a woman with waist-length hair was startled, covering her mouth, unbelievably looking at Shi Yin. Clank. The tray in her hands fell to the ground. Green fruits scattered, rolling everywhere. Linda. The other woman next to her quietly shouted. Stop being dazed. Linda covered her mouth with astonishment. She just stood there, bewilderedly looking at Shi Yin from a distance, didn't seem to hear the voice of the person beside her. Lanjia, what are you doing? A loud shout suddenly came up from the left of Shi Yin. A 2-meter-tall man with an extremely sturdy body and a ferocious red face was staring at Shi Yin. He wore a rustic animal leather cloth that was wrapping around his body, exposing a tan skin with dense scars. The exposure of firm muscles indicated an endlessly mighty strength. Mangu, don't poke your nose into my business. Chao Zilan still kept her mesmerizing smile on her face, while her eyes were silently looking toward Shi Yin. She continued provoking Shi Yin. Shi Yin, you don't have the guts to do it? The daughter of the Chao family is insane. She has gone mad indeed. After all, is that her? I have heard that she has never had any feelings for any man. How is this possible then? It is certainly her. Otherwise, how come Mangu of the uncultivated barbarian sect have gotten angry like that? Near the lake, in the tavern, the clamor was rising. The majority of the warriors were gathering in groups of 5 or 7 and boisterously discussing together. In just a short time, Shi Yin had unexpectedly become the interest of everyone. All of them were guessing his identity, wanted to know the relationship between him and Chao Zilan. At the trading area from a distance, there was a person with a black veil covering the face. As that person heard the clamor at the bathing area, that one couldn't help but walk over, stood on the road of the trading area, looking towards this place. After glimpsing quickly, that person suddenly shuddered. The eyes with mixed and confused emotions looked at Shi Yin without blinking. It seemed that Shi Yin also felt something. He suddenly turned around looking towards that person. For eyes met. There were as if a lightning flashing up, and countless feelings had been transmitted through this lightning. Those who were looking at Shi Yin all realized that Shi Yin's eyes had changed. They subconsciously shifted their eyes toward the direction of his look, but everything they could see was a pair of beautiful, bright, deep eyes. After suddenly turned his head back again, under many scrutinized looks, Shi Yin dragged a half-smile out of the corner of his mouth and said, It is not that I don't dare to come down. I am grateful with your intention. Regretfully, I have been taken. If you want to become my favorite, you have to try harder. And first, it needs to be accepted by her. Shi Yin pointed towards the person in the black veil. Under the attentive looks of other people, that woman removed her black veil, exposing an exceptionally bewitching beauty. She gently and slenderly leaped up, slowly took step by step towards Shi Yin. She was like a peri sent from heaven with beautifully elegant manners. In the steamy weather, she deliberately walked through the window in front of Shi Yin, then descended and stood next to him. Everyone clamored again. Xia Xinyan of the Kiara Sea, that is her indeed. The reincarnation martial spirit is unimaginably miraculous. Finally, we have witnessed it today. Who is that little rascal? Why are the 2 most beautiful flowers of the endless sea following him? Shi Yin, have you heard about this name? Only devil knows. Damn it, I don't understand anything. How come Miss Chao, the one I have highly admired, could recklessly act like this just because of this bastard? Most of the young warriors showed their sadness and disappointment. They angrily clenched their teeth, staring at Shi Yin, resenting not to be able to devour him. Many girls, on the contrary, displayed their excitement. Their eyes were flooded with curious beams, interestingly looking at Shi Yin, wanting to know what kind of mystical attraction that Shi Yin had which made him able to draw the admirability of the 2 beautiful women, Chao Zilan and Xia Xinyan. Instantly, inside the bathing area, as well as the outside, people boisterously discussed what was happening. When have you arrived? Shi Yin gently asked. Sitting down next to Shi Yin, without looking at Chao Zilan's angry face in the lake, Xia Xinyan revealed a smile. I've just arrived this morning. The 3 Gods sect has invited us. My grandfather is coming here with me as well. Tang Yuan is very thoughtful. Shi Yin nodded. He stretched out his hand holding her jade-like hand, but she resentfully pushed it away. She also gave him a black look. This is wrong. You dare to upset Chao Jia. I will beat you to death. A roar resounded. Man Gu of the uncultivated barbarian sect with the ferocious, sturdy body like the one of a tiger or a panther suddenly dashed towards Shi Yin. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. An ear-splitting sound came up in the air. As soon as Man Gu leaped up into the air, a tremendous power spread out from his body. Shi Yin knitted his eyebrows. His eyes turned to be frigid. Slosh, slosh, slosh. Water shot up from the bathing area below Man Gu. The pellucid water pillars rocketed and then flew straight toward him. Get lost, Man Gu shouted. The sound wave, which was like tens of thousands of swords, directly struck those splendid water pillars that were massively approaching. The sword lights slashed those water pillars which were like stone cylinders, breaking them into plenty of water drops that splattered everywhere in the air. Man Gu stomped on a huge water drop and then brutally dashed towards Shi Yin. Lightning flashed up. A big black club suddenly emerged in Ma Gu's hand. Thunder resounded. Countless sharp rays of light radiated from the big, pure, spectacular club, dragging along the incomparable their aura. They darted towards Shi Yan's chest altogether just in a blink. Watch out! Yi Zhangfeng quietly shouted, but remained at his spot, except for frowning a little. Lin Yiqi showed her excitement. Her face was glowing red, but her voice was still very gentle. That freak has the innate god strength. It has been said that he's killed a Nirvana realm warrior just by one strike. We can witness his danger today. Ha ha ha. He is putting all of the hatred into his actions this time. We are going to see an interesting play. The energetic seals, which were created by the convergence of lights, emerged in Shi Yan's palms. Layer after layer of these seals heaped up into one which was then impetuously shot out of his palm. The life seal. 7 seals merged into one which was as heavy as a mountain. Its god lights were immense. Its power could crush mountains and the ground into dust. Boom! An earth-shaking sound suddenly reverberated from the bathing area. In that ear-piercing explosion, the paving blue stones of the lake scattered here and there. A tavern next to the hot water lake collapsed instantly. Big stone blocks massively fell, making many warriors run away while holding their heads and cursing loudly. Man Gu's body in the air continued shaking. The big club slipped out of his hand, falling and directly striking a tavern which then collapsed shortly. Shi Yan's hand got numb. His veins almost exploded, and his face was glowing red. He had to take 3 steps backward to be able to stabilize himself. Dangerous! Shi Yan's heart shuddered. His face suddenly became cold like ice. His eyes shot out unlimited combating will. He leaped up and plunged down toward Man Gu in the lake like a falcon seizing its prey. Continue. Man Gu was standing in the lake. As seeing Shi Yin plunging down, he suddenly laughed terrifyingly. The bones in his body crackled, producing constant explosive sounds. Man Gu's tremendous aura impetuously came out, following the cracking sounds of the bones. Chapter 309. Aggressively Fighting. Chapter 309. Aggressively Fighting. Boop. Man Gu's clothes were entirely torn down. The sheets of animal skins on his body turned into pieces, scattering all over the sky. A flow of wild, delirious, tremendous power suddenly projected from Man Gu's body. The green veins on Man Gu's body looked like as if they were interweaving together, which were similar to some black streaks moving along in different directions on his body. It also looked like a blind painter with a paintbrush in his hand drawing bold lines, creating some formation. In just a few seconds, the vessel's positions inside Man Gu's entire body had changed. After the green veins had emerged, they then transformed into a kind of pattern, which resembled a tattoo binding around his body. This tattoo was both arrogant and mighty, like a green-horned savage buffalo. The green-horned savage buffalo that surfaced on his skin brought people a feeling that his strength had tremendously been reinforced and was about to shoot out. The power of the barbarian god veins. In the tavern, many warriors suddenly screamed out in shock. The power of the barbarian god veins was the scared-level martial technique of the uncultivated barbarian sect, which definitely shouldn't be underestimated. It was said that Mangu was an anomalous innate genius. His vessels were naturally more exceptionally sturdy than ordinary people. When he used the power of the barbarian god veins, his vessels pounded as if there was some kind of the barbarian power continuously spreading out non-stop from his bones and vessels. Mangu is known as the person with the god power that is ranked the first among the young generation in the Endless Sea. It isn't necessary for him to use any secret treasure. Mangu only needs to rely on his god power of his own. Not to mention the warriors at the same realm. The Nirvana realm warriors are unlikely to resist him. That's right. It has been said that Mangu used to launch a strike that made a Nirvana realm warrior explode and die. If a Nirvana realm warrior wants to defeat him, he must use the support of his sea of consciousness and activate the oppressive soul to waste the profound chi in Mangu's body. That is how he can defeat Mangu, hopefully. That little rascal is screwed now. He dares to fight one-on-one with Mangu. He doesn't care about being dead or alive. A crowd of warriors screamed out in astonishment, didn't hold back, but discussed the miraculous martial technique of the uncultivated barbarian sect. Many people were standing and watching beside the bathing area. Mangu's veins, which were prominently bulging, had created the green-horned savage buffalo tattoos. His bones crackled like the sound of the explosive fireworks. Horrendous aura gradually came up. Launch! A shout bringing along the power that was as strong as the landslide of an ice mountain reverberated from the bathing area, creating a huge wave. Mangu's 2-meter-tall body solemnly stood in the lake like a barbarian god, creating many 10-meter-tall waves. The aura around him was indescribably tremendous. In the air, an imposing figure plunged down right in front of Mangu as fast as the lightning. This person didn't choose to take actions from the air. Come here. Mangu's face displayed great arrogance. His chest muscles were like a chunk of cold steel. His hands constantly pounded on his chest as if he was insane. Shi Yin knitted his eyebrows. His face was as cold as black ice. He gently took a deep breath. Suddenly, in front of many people's eyes, his mighty body gradually shriveled and turned to be scraggy. As soon as his body was bone dry, a flow of horrendous aura that dragged along different emotions of violence, despair, disgust, and murder suddenly rose up and blended with the steam in the bathing area, creating some kind of a peculiar white substance that was covering his entire body. When watching, other people would have the feeling that Shi Yan's body was covered with a splendid silver armor that was full of evil aura. His body's transformation was different from Mangu's. After Mangu had become crazy, his body expanded, becoming bigger and more audacious. Shi Yin, on the contrary, became mute. His imposing body had shriveled and dried up. The spiritual aura surged up, bringing the extremely ferocious forces which could freeze other people's hearts. Never before has a single warrior in the same realm dared to carry out a full frontal assault against me. Mangu excitedly licked his lips as if he was a ferocious, bloodthirsty beast. You are dangerous, though. You haven't got injured after receiving one full power strike of mine. No wonder why you are so ambitious like this. Shi Yan's eyes were as cold as an icy saber. He dragged a faint smile out of the corner of his mouth. Let's continue. Mangu roared, violently stomped on the ground. The blue stones on the bottom of the lake were broken into pieces under his trample. Countless horrendous forces emitted from his feet. With Mangu as the center, in the range of 50 meters, the blue stone bottom of the lake was smashed into small pieces under his aggressive feet as if it was pounded by hundreds of big clubs. Mangu was still standing there motionlessly. The blue stones in the 50-meter range surrounding had crumbled and scattered here and there. The bluestone rubble which dragged along the turquoise water had created numerous water arrows that flew up in the air altogether. While these water arrows were still flying in the air, Mangu suddenly took actions. Like a vast mountain that could walk, Mangu mopped up towards Shi Yin. The ground was shaken wherever he had passed by. Inside the bathing area, the rumble reverberated non-stop. Tens of thousands of tons of water, which were conducted by an unknown force, condensed and converged to Mangu's body. The water of the lake became viscous and then turned to be more solid, constantly plastered on Mangu's body. His body seemed to be presently bigger. Before arriving at Shi Yan's place, these thousands of tons of water had made him much stronger. Like a giant in the ancient times, Mangu launched his iron fist, which brought along numerous, spectacularly splendid water drops. Inside of each of these water drops contained a force that was violent enough to crush an ordinary Earth Realm warrior's flesh and bones. Very strong. This Mangu has the terrifying god power indeed. This tremendous force is created by the condensation and refinement of his body and the profound qi. Those tons of water not only are adhered altogether, but also contain the power that can make an earth-shaking explosion. This Mangu deserves to be the once-in-a-thousand-year genius of the uncultivated barbarian sect. That guy hides the terrifying forces inside those water drops which can explode at any given time. He uses the flabbiness of the water drops to neutralize the rapidity of the forces, preventing them from instantly exploding. This Mangu is absolutely not a blunt guy. Being able to do this has proved that he is not an idiot. That's right. This Mangu is very dangerous. No wonder he wasn't defeated when fighting with a Nirvana warrior. He does have some potential. Everyone opened their eyes widely, bewilderedly watching the scene in the lake. Their faces displayed an unimaginable sense of astonishment. Many of people who were bathing in the lake had to run away without caring if they were wet or not. They hurriedly climbed to the terraces of the taverns and then watched the battle from there. The second combat capability in the power rankings deserves the praise from everyone. Yi Zhangfeng was standing next to the window, quietly nodding his head. He then glanced at Lin Yiqi and said with a big smile, "Jie, if you confront Mangu without using any secret treasure, just only rely on your physical strength to fight. What do you think about the possibility of winning?" Xia Xinyan's beautiful eyes brightened, surprisingly looked at the girl beside her. She didn't know the relation between Shi Yan and these two persons. As she had seen them sit at the same table with Shi Yan, she had assumed that Shi Yan and Yi Zhangfeng, Lin Yiqi, were friends. Therefore, she had secretly paid attention to them since she had entered this tavern. Both Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi had brought her a strange feeling. She could vaguely feel that they were emitting some kind of aura that could make other people's hearts vigorously pound. She felt that Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi were exceptionally outstanding, and their cultivation base wasn't low at all. Right now, as she heard Yi Zhangfeng's question, she was startled inside and extremely astonished. Mangu was the high-class warrior who was ranked number 2 in the power rankings of the Endless Sea. It was said that nobody had the barbarian power that was as strong as his. Although Yi Zhangfeng had witnessed the danger of Mangu, he still raised that question. Would he perhaps feel that this beautiful girl was even mightier than Mangu? The winning possibility is only 5-5. Lin Yiqi knitted her eyebrows, seriously thought for a while before speaking. If merely relying on the physical strength to fight, it can only be a draw. But if it were a mortal combat, the dead one would be him. The girl said with a confident face. Xia Xinyan was surprised. Her beautiful eyes flared up suspiciously as she didn't know if Lin Yiqi was telling the truth or not. Yi Zhangfeng unexpectedly nodded as if it was obvious. If it is mortal combat, the dead one will no doubt be that guy Mangu. I have no second thoughts about this, but I also believe that if you take the risk, using only brute physical strength, your possibility to win is still higher. Lin Yiqi lifted her face up and angrily said, "It is obvious." The astonishment was getting bigger in Xia Xinyan's eyes. Boom! Right at this moment, at the bathing area, a vortex appeared and swept along the water drops from the lake. This vortex sucked all of those water drops which contained the tremendous forces. Each water drop falling into the vortex had released an earth-shaking explosion. The water in the lake splattered everywhere. None of the water drops that contained violent forces, which had been condensed by Mangu, could touch Shi Yan's body because it was attracted by that vortex and was then dissolved. While Mangu was frothily snarling at the lake below him, Shi Yan was lingeringly levitating just above the eye of the impending vortex when he abruptly leaped up and surfed the waves. The devilish misty smoke condensed on his body. He now looked like a dragon leaping out of the sea, dashing straight toward Mangu. Each of those two men condensed and created a huge water pillar, putting all of their forces into their own water pillars. The aura emitted from these water pillars was so powerful as if it could crush mountains and the ground into pieces. These two water pillars then fiercely collided with each other. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The collision of these two colossal water pillars darted out many water arrows here and there. Each of the water arrows contained a terrifying power that frightened people out of their wits. These arrows, which were like the thick water curtains, shot out everywhere. Many ear-splitting noises resounded. 12 imposing taverns unexpectedly suffered an extremely destructive power all of a sudden. In just an instant, 5 of them were pierced through by the water arrows and collapsed. The remaining 7 were shaking uncontrollably and were on the verge of collapsing. Luckily, a flock of warriors from the taverns united their forces in preventing them from perilously plunging down. However, the fight between Yin and Mangu was still raging on. Chapter 310. Violent Attacks. Chapter 310. Violent Attacks. Numerous waves of energy spread out from the two water pillars. After having radiated dazzling lights and shot out thousands of water arrows, they collapsed quickly. At this time, Yin and Mangu were standing, facing each other on the surface of the water. Their powerful punches collided, creating a shaking explosion like a terrible roll of thunder. Many beams of light that could dazzle and dizzy other people instantly covered both of them, making their figure ambiguous. In just a few seconds, it was unknown for how many times they had launched their strikes. Boom! The waves tumbled. Their bodies were like long lances that plunged at a mind-blowing speed to the bathing area, creating a huge crater in the middle of the lake. Water flows crazily flooding in the crater was struck straight up to the sky by the horrendous powers inside the crater, turning into a water dragon with incomparable strength. The water flows kept pouring into the crater, then transformed into rampageous water dragons soaring up to the sky. After the power gradually dissolved, they returned to drops of rain falling. Damn it! Can't see anything. Why are you burrowing into the ground? *T. You've just pissed on my fireworks. I want to go down to see. If you want to die, go ahead. I assure that you will no longer exist in this world tomorrow. On the terrace of the shaking tavern, many warriors were whining, wanted to go down there to have a better look, but they were afraid of the aftershocks from the powers of the two of them. Thus, they could only continue staying in the tavern and were complaining non-stop. Boom, boom, boom. Inside that deep crater, which was like a well, Yin and Mangu were still hanging onto each other. The tremendous strength massively rolled out from the two of them. The violent strength, which could easily crush down ordinary warriors, flowed out through their limbs, colliding with each other and creating the explosive sound like rolling thunders. The inside of the earth was destroyed so terribly that deep ditches appeared everywhere. Yin activated the petrification martial spirit which made his body as solid as stone or steel. The negative power was like surging tides, joining with his profound chi and torrentially flowing everywhere inside his body. Every time a punch was launched, earth-shaking explosive sounds resounded from inside his arm's bones. While he was freely discharging the power, his body, which had been tempered thousands of times before, suddenly released an indescribably wonderful feeling as if his body contained the unlimited strength which wasn't unlikely to burst out. When the tremendous power of Mangu struck on his body, a sound, which was like pieces of mental consciousness that collided with each other, arose. Yin felt that his entire body was in pain as if all of his cells had been smashed at once. However, during the pain, he also felt refreshed at the same time. A miraculous illusion had appeared. He had a feeling that his body was a magic weapon and Mangu was a big hammer pounding on his body. It seemed that this was an indispensable step when forging the magic weapons. Mangu's strength, which was enough to smash all of the insides of his body, also seemed to have some effects that helped his body go through a marvelous tempering process. Under Mangu's torrential attacks, inside his iron body, The cells continuously divided and then combined. The blood vessels were overstretched too much that it would possibly break at any time. Even the bones inside his body also produced the shrieking sound as if they were about to have some transformations. Under the effect of the powerful punches, the fabulous essence of the ice-cold flame and the earth flame, which were hiding inside his body, were also miraculously blended into his bones and then became a part of the cells and blood vessels. Under the violent attacks of Mangu, Shi Yin felt abnormally comfortable. However, Mangu didn't like it. Being in the first rank of the uncultivated barbarian sect's young generation, he had always been transmitted the most powerful strength of the uncultivated barbarian sect since he was little. Since he was born, he already had the innate god power. His vessels and blood were also different from ordinary people. The current body provided him with an incomparably mighty strength, which helped him cultivate many dangerous combat techniques of the uncultivated barbarian sect to the extent that nobody could even have imagined. So far, Mangu had always assumed that he was the next generation's barbarian god. At the same realm, no one was able to fight face-to-face with him. However, while fighting with Shi Yin today, he had realized that the legend of barbarian god's body, which had been spread throughout the history of the uncultivated barbarian sect, was not the only truth. In this world, it turned out that without cultivating the magics of the uncultivated barbarian sect, nor help from the spiritual pellets of the uncultivated barbarian sect, there was still someone who possessed a body that was as mighty as his. The horrendous strength that he had strived to release was able to crush the beasts at the same level, although the sturdiness of these beasts far surpassed the ones of the warriors at the same level. He used to try it. He truly could smash the organs of the fifth-level beast Green Eyes Armored Lion with only one strike, which led to its miserable death. The body of the Green Eyes Armored Lion was very sturdy. Even the organs inside the body were covered by some layers of flesh, which were as hard as the iron armors. Even if the strong, profound chi of the ordinary warriors could get into its body, it was still tough to break those layers of flesh to harm the internal organs. But, with only one punch, accompanied by the crazily explosive strength of the punch, he had crumbled the organs of the Green Eyes Armored Lion, even the flesh layers, which were as hard as the iron armor that just had been broken. The incomparable god power. He has assumed that nobody in this world could be stronger than his barbarian strength, or possess a body which was sturdier than his. However, today, his torrential power that was like the strong wind and the big storm hadn't been able to smash Shi Yan's system after having swept all over his body. He even felt that he was fighting with a 1,000-year stone. His punch seemed to strike on a rare lava rock instead of a living body. Boom, 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 boom. An explosive sound that could even remove mountains came up from the huge, deep hole. After that, water dragons undulatingly flew up to the sky one by one amid the splendid water shower, dazzling other people's eyes. Many vibrating waves suddenly spread out from the middle of the bathing area. Wherever the vibrating waves diffused, the ground instantly split open. Those taverns, which had been shaken and almost collapsed, finally violently shook as they couldn't stand the consecutive shock waves anymore. Being surrounded with many screams, many warriors hurriedly leaped up and flew out. Before those warriors could get out completely, the remaining taverns eventually collapsed at the same time, as they had to suffer too many of consecutive vibrations. Xia, together with Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi, and other warriors hastily moved away from the bathing area, running towards the trading area in the distance. The buildings in the trading area were made of the blazing yang stones, which could only be found on the Sun Island. Moreover, each building was reinforced by a special formation. Therefore, all vibrations reaching the trading area would be instantly suppressed. The trading area was still safe. Not long after that, many warriors who were as wet as a drowned rat shifted to the trading area to continue watching the fight. 3 people, Xia, Yi Zhangfeng, and Lin Yiqi were also among those people. The 3 of them didn't seem to worry for Shi Yin. Xiaoxinyan's face was still calm. Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi even showed their excitement, discussing together non-stop on the way. The peculiar vibrations inside the earth were getting more and more violent to the extent that the elders who were secluding for cultivation on the sacred light mountain of the Sun Island were also alerted. In front of the caves on the mountain flank of the Sun Island, some figures that emitted heating aura quietly appeared. They were standing under the shades of the ancient trees in front of the caves, coldly looking down. A ray of God light zoomed over. The hierarch in power of the three-god sect, Tang Yuan, silently appeared on the mountain flank. He stood underneath the shade of a luxuriant juniper tree, waving at those who were standing in front of the caves. As soon as those elders saw him, they immediately leaped up, flew over, and stood next to him. Waiting until those elders stood neatly, Tang Yuan revealed a smile, then pointed toward the clamorous noise down there and said, "The one who is fighting with Mangu is Shi Yin." Some of the elders with doleful eyes, but robust spirits displayed astonishment after hearing it. One of them slightly bent down and said with a low voice, "Are you sure that he is the successor of the star god?" Tang Yuan was still somber. He said seriously, "Yes, I am sure." The elders' expressions were all shaken. When looking down there, they were even more attentive, as if they were thinking of something for the future of the three-god sect. According to the three-god sect's rules, once he successfully enters the Nirvana realm, he can also become the star god of the next generation. Tang Yuan's face was heavy. He lowered his voice. If 5 out of 9 of the three-god sect's elders in power agree, he will become the new star god and immediately receive the newfound noble position and status in the god sect. You need to think carefully. I believe he is very close to the Nirvana realm. The countenance of the elders slightly changed after hearing those words. Once the star god's identity is confirmed, the benefits of the three-god sect should also be altered. Therefore, you will have to concede some of your current benefits. Tang Yuan meaningfully looked at the elders and then continued, "I know you will feel that it is difficult. Obtaining something is easier than giving it up. But I hope that you can sacrifice and make concessions for the sake of the three-god sect. Even I myself will concede a part of my benefits to support the new star god." The elders of the three gods sect kept silent without uttering a word. "Hierarch, we have heard that he is a member of the Yang family?" One of the elders suddenly spoke up. Tang Yuan secretly released a sigh. He reluctantly nodded. "That's not wrong. Yang Tian Emperor has assigned Jiao Han Yi, one of the 3 Azura kings, to pick him up. That has proved how much the Yang family respects him. While Yang Tian Emperor hasn't returned yet, if we take this chance, tightly binding him with the God sect, isn't it a good thing for the God sect? What if he had the benefits of the 3 God sect, but his heart was for the Yang family? The God sect has its own rules." Tang Yuannong hesitated for a while before replying. The elders' faces slightly changed. They then quietly nodded. After that, without asking further, they shifted their eyes towards the bathing area down there. They wanted to see if that little rascal was qualified enough to make them willingly concede their current benefits or not. Opportunity should only be obtained by one's real ability. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.